American comics, starting with Superman. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination, so don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author. We are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like, and if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 276, I Agamotto. Amidst the rubble, Odin's mouth spitted blood. He clutched his side, a look of sorrow in his eyes. In his prime, even relying on brute force, he would have fought Leia for hundreds of rounds. But now, a hero in his twilight years, his aged frame could no longer withstand such a torment. Leia soared above Odin, looking down at the slightly bewildered God King, and asked calmly, "What did you do to my spear? Why can't I pierce you?" This wasn't the most puzzling thing for Leia. Odin's blessing to him was identical to the one on Thor's hammer. It made no sense for this old scoundrel to betray his own son. Odin, suppressing the pain, smiled, "Your weapon cannot harm Asgardians, or, more accurately, my people." Leia instantly understood. He had long suspected this old scoundrel would betray him, and now it was confirmed. According to this logic, Thor's hammer also bears the same blessing. Perhaps Odin intended to protect Thor, but from what Leia had heard, Thor's hammer offered no threat. Instead, it was crushed by Hela, the goddess of death, with a single hand. Even a godlike being would be practically unable to crush Thor's hammer, as Hela was its first wielder. But the crucial point is Odin's blessing on Thor's hammer. This blessing prevents harm from those of Odin's lineage, allowing Hela to ignore Thor's hammer and crush it. This father is truly betraying his son. While Odin explained, his hands were busy, gripping the eternal spear. Mysterious runes emerged from the golden spear. Unlike Leia's silver spear, the eternal spear's runes were densely packed, emitting an almost overwhelming murderous aura. This was the artifact that once accompanied Odin in his conquests of the Nine Realms and his annihilation of countless foes, the eternal spear. Legend has it that once this spear locks onto a person, no matter where they flee, they cannot escape this near-law-based lethal blow. As Odin's divine power surges to its limit, his life force rapidly drains. Every time he unleashes the eternal spear's might, Odin ages hundreds of years, and he never uses it unless absolutely necessary. Sensing the surging murderous intent, Leia's face darkened. He contemplated countless countermeasures, then, after a moment, spoke calmly, "Odin, are you ready to die?" At the word death, Odin's divine power paused, and the runes on the eternal spear flickered. Leia, understanding his concern, continued, "You were already nearing death, and now you've been severely wounded. If I'm not mistaken, this single strike has nearly depleted your life force, right? Are you truly confident Thor will depart for the Dark World? Are you truly confident Thor will inherit the throne?" At this moment, faced with this barrage of questions, Odin's first thought wasn't Thor. Instead, it was the figure of a woman in black hair and green clothing. She was covered in blood, her eyes filled with disregard for life and hatred for herself. Odin was weakening, while this woman grew stronger day by day. Thor, now no match for her. The golden light gradually dimmed. Odin was silent for a moment, finally sighing helplessly. After a moment of deep contemplation, Odin raised his head again and looked at Leia. "Go, can't, he will send me away with just a word." "Is this the Asgardian way?" Leia demanded, neither humble nor arrogant. Clearly, Odin had not expected Leia to say such a thing. He was old, yes, but he was still the king of the Nine Realms. And yet, he was threatened by a mere junior? "Are you threatening me, a mere planetary-level being actually threatened a father-like being? Who gave you the courage?" Odin's face paled, his hand tightly gripping the eternal spear. He coldly demanded, "Do you really think I can't kill you? I believe His Majesty the God King can kill me, but I know for sure I've never done anything to wrong Thor, you, or Asgard. Just because I possess godhood, you want to kill me, then what do you want?" Odin asked sternly. Odin could indeed kill Leia, but it would come at a terrible price. He could either overdraw his lifespan by 100 years and unleash the eternal spear's mightiest blow, shattering Leia's body and soul. But that would also bring Odin's premature demise. Besides, Odin's strength and speed were inferior to Leia's. What good was his divine power if he couldn't hit? "Give me your eternal spear," Leia demanded, his gaze fixed on the eternal spear in Odin's hand. Hearing this, Odin almost wondered if he was hallucinating. Don't push your luck. I'm not pushing your luck. Who sneak knows if you'll over to Earth and kill me one day? Without the eternal spear, you can't kill me. Besides, it bears your blessing, right? I won't harm your people, Leia promised. Odin, leaning on the eternal spear, stood up. The eternal spear is the king's weapon. With your strength, you can't unleash its might. Using it forcefully will only backfire. The eternal spear, a powerful artifact used by Odin to conquer the 9 realms, was undoubtedly no match for the Thunder Key ring that Atri had helped Leia forge. On the one hand, the dwarf Atri couldn't possibly forge the king's weapon privately, that would be treason. On the other hand, it also suited Leia's current situation. A weapon too powerful for Leia's current divine power to wield. It's true I can't wield the eternal spear, but isn't it the same for you? You've been injured again today. Now, besides using the eternal spear as a crutch, can you still fight in battle? Leia was silent for a moment, then continued, of course, I won't take your eternal spear for nothing. If you're willing to give it to me, I can resurrect your wife, Frigga, the queen of the gods. What did you say? Odin's face suddenly changed when he heard Leia mention Frigga's name. Ignoring the pain in his body, he stood up and stared at Leia with a glare that seemed to be spitting fire. You better understand what you're talking about. How can you resurrect the dead? Seeing Odin's excited expression, Leia couldn't help but sigh. Odin had traversed the 9 realms throughout his life, invincible, but his beloved wife was his greatest weakness. Leia flicked his wrist and pulled out a pendant that looked like an eye from a silver bracelet. The Eye of Agamotto, Odin couldn't help but exclaim. P.S. Some readers don't understand why Odin wants to kill the protagonist. Let me explain. The protagonist's godhood, which is of the same level as Odin's lineage, is the biggest threat to Odin. The plot of this book so far is written around this point. If some readers can't understand and criticize me, I really have nothing to say. Chapter 277, Returning to the Countryside. How did the Eye of Agamotto end up in your possession? Odin stared at Leia in disbelief, his expression awe-inspiring. Leia held the Eye of Agamotto against his neck, his hands shifting and shifting, his divine power energizing. Suddenly, the Eye of Agamotto seemed to open, radiating a green light. Leia cast a time spell, healing the wound on his shoulder. The wound had been inflicted by the Spear of Eternity, imbued with Odin's divine power. Without special means, it would remain in place forever. I remember the Eye of Agamotto being a sacred relic of the Sorcerer Supreme of Midgard. How did it end up in your possession? Odin's beard trembled, his mind racing through every possible explanation. If I told you I was Earth's newest Sorcerer Supreme, would you believe me? Leia demanded. Believe it. Because this is the most reasonable explanation. You need the Eye of Agamotto's approval to unleash its power. Even if someone else seizes it, they can't use it. Odin put away the Spear of Eternity and spoke in a calm tone. No wonder Caecilius stole 2 pages of the Forbidden Book but didn't take the Eye of Agamotto. It wasn't that he felt he lacked talent or couldn't learn time magic, but rather that even if he did, he couldn't use it without the Eye's approval. Just like Mordo said, magical instruments choose their masters. Leia was speechless at this. He hadn't considered this before and just picked it up and used it. Well, actually, I'm not the Sorcerer Supreme. Due to various complicated circumstances, the Eye of Agamotto is temporarily with me. I understand. You don't need to explain anything to me. As long as you can resurrect Frigga. As he spoke of the god Queen Frigga, Odin's eyes lost much of their sharpness. Even in his later years, his heart was most concerned with his kingdom and his 9 kingdoms. The reason for his hostility toward Lee was Lee's godhood. When one truly loses something, does one understand what matters most? At his age, kingdom and power are fleeting. Now, with a second chance to choose, Odin's mind was clear. He would take his wife to a beautiful location, seclude themselves, and await the final day of his life. Sensing Odin's call, the 8-legged divine horse approached. Odin mounted the steed and returned with Lee to the Golden Palace. Frigga lay in the main hall, as if peacefully asleep. Your Majesty, the surrounding guards saluted Odin, who had hurried over, but Odin paid them no mind. You will leave first. Yes. After the guards left, Odin stepped aside, looked at Leia, and said, please. Yes. Without further exchange, Leia folded her hands, and the Eye of Agamotto opened, emitting a faint blue light, and time magic was unleashed. The next moment, a mysterious force erupted in midair, and time in the main hall seemed to be split apart and began to flow backwards. The goddess Frigga's wounds healed, Her skin regained its color, and at the same time, her soul was summoned from the realm of the dead. Frigga, lying in bed, suddenly opened her eyes and began to gasp for air like a drowning person. Seeing this, Odin quickly dropped the spear of eternity and rushed forward, hugging the awakening goddess. "My dear, I won't let you leave me again. I swear." "Why, what's going on?" "I'm not, Odin." "What happened?" "How could I?" "Lee used the Eye of Agamotto to resurrect you," Odin explained briefly, "and Frigga, the queen of the gods, suddenly changed her expression. This might affect the continuity of time, or even, so what? I've made up my mind, Frigga. Let's go into seclusion together." "Odin, why did you suddenly think of seclusion?" The old couple seemed to have been apart for years, yet now they had so much to say. Lee could sense the burning love in Odin and the Queen of the Gods' eyes. Even after 1,000 years of companionship, their feelings for each other hadn't diminished, but rather grew stronger. Holding your hand, growing old together. This is love. Just as Lee was about to leave, unwilling to be a third wheel, Odin stopped her. "Child, will you promise to help Thor and protect Asgard?" "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I wish to return to my own world and won't stay here long, so I can't promise you that." Lea's heart was in turmoil. From the moment Odin's hostility began, he had contemplated countless solutions. But when he saw Odin and the God Queen embrace, planning to retire together, Lea saw a different Odin. "I understand, child. I apologize for what happened before. Also, this spear has been with me for many years. I'm giving it to you now. I hope you'll use it well." Odin waved his hand, and the eternal spear flew from the ground. Lea reached out to take it, and at the same time, a divine message entered Lea's mind. This message was not offensive, but rather the instructions for using the eternal spear. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Lea put away the eternal spear, bowed slightly to Odin, and turned to leave. In the main hall, Odin helped Frigga to her feet, his eyes full of affection as he said, "Will you come with me into seclusion, give up your position as Queen of the Gods, and leave once and for all?" "Odin, you know what? I've been waiting for this day for millennia." Leaving Odin's golden palace, Lea found the secret passage that Loki had taken in his golden warship. This secret passage wasn't spatial magic, but rather a one-way teleportation. Asgard's spatial restrictions remained, but it was a spatial connection, akin to a small wormhole. After nearly a minute of traveling through space, Lea's surroundings suddenly opened up. The earth beneath his feet was charred black, and the sky was filled with dark clouds, obscuring the sun and creating a gloomy, lifeless atmosphere. "Is this Valtheim, the realm of the Dark Elves?" Lea appeared in midair, plummeting several meters before abruptly turning back and standing tall. His clairvoyant eyes penetrated the scattered rocky walls around him. But he could find no trace of Thor or the Dark Elves. Of course, he also didn't see Loki's body. According to the plot, Loki will fake his death and escape, and the Dark Elf Malekith will obtain complete ether particles and drive the mothership to the Atrium Midgard. That is the Earth, the center of the 9 kingdoms. Releasing ether particles there can drag the entire world into darkness. In this case, Lea did not stay in the dark world for long, but stretched out his hand to weld a portal in the air. Asgard has space restrictions, but this side does not, so the portal is easily opened. On the other side of the portal is Tony's villa base in Brooklyn, New York. The Earth is much calmer than Lea imagined, even a little too calm. He went directly into Tony's villa base and saw Thor and Jane Foster there. "Lea, you escaped my father. I knew you could do it." Thor gave Lea a big hug right away. Lea gave Thor a look and said, "Come here, I have something to tell you. P.S. This is the ending I wanted to write about Odin. I wanted to write about Odin's transformation. He experienced loss, then found it again, then saw through things, and finally, he retired and spent the last stage of his life with the one he loved most." Also, regarding the Eternal Spear, the cinematic universe didn't explain its whereabouts. The author wanted to write about the whereabouts of this king's weapon. "I've been criticized a lot recently, I hope someone can understand." Chapter 278, The Way Home. Seeing Lea's serious expression, Thor's face froze for a moment, as if conjuring a terrifying thought. However, he followed Lea out. Tony, Banner, and the others present were confused and continued discussing Thor's news, the conspiracy of the Dark Elf Malekith. In the courtyard, Thor emerged and anxiously asked, "Lea, you didn't hurt my father, did you?" No, your father was so kind to me, How could I possibly hurt him? Let me put it this way, I resurrected your mother with the Eye of Agamotto. Leah didn't want to hide it. Although grief could make Thor grow, the price of such growth was too high. Thor was initially skeptical, but upon seeing the Eye of Agamotto still hanging around Leah's neck, he immediately understood. Then can you resurrect my brother? I know it'll disrupt time, but your brother isn't dead. Your parents are going into seclusion, and Loki plans to become like your father and rule the 9 kingdoms. Loki had been gloating, but Lee sold him out without a second thought. Asshole. I knew it. I knew he wasn't that kind. Thor's face flushed with anger, and he wished he could fly over to Loki and slap him. Let's deal with the Dark Elves first. Once we defeat them, you can do whatever you want with Loki. Lee patted Thor's shoulder, and Thor smiled back. Actually, it's not impossible to let Loki be king. You know, I wouldn't be a good king. Thor's gaze shifted to the blonde woman in the room, Jane Foster. A classic case of someone who prefers beauty to power. You two brothers, discuss this. Go inside and discuss what's going to happen with everyone. The two concluded their conversation and returned to the living room side by side. Dr. Banner glanced at Leah and Thor, then continued to say to the light screen in front of him, Thor has already told us the general situation. There have been legends of celestial convergence since ancient times, but I didn't expect that this day would really come. This is the data researched by Dr. Eric. He found the center point of celestial convergence. Greenwich. Jane stood up and added, if you have entered the scene of celestial convergence, the boundaries of the 9 kingdoms will almost completely disappear, and the laws of physics will be all messed up. We need a battle plan. Excuse me. Tony stood up and raised his hand. The spicy chicken shreds you mentioned, Malekith. Oh, is Malekith immortal? Of course not. Hearing this, Tony activated the metal plate on his chest, and in an instant, his body was covered with nano-steel. The battle plan is, call the captain as well, and let's kill the spicy chicken shreds together. Leah agreed. Good idea. What are we waiting for? We can rush to Greenwich in advance and make deployments. Oh, by the way, Leah, there's something I must tell you. Tony suddenly lifted his mask and said, based on the spatial gradient calculation, I finally selected 3 parallel universes. One of them will be yours. Upon hearing this news, Leah's calm heart couldn't help but stir. He had been in the Marvel Universe for some time, and during that time, he had always wanted to return to his original universe. Although he had his brothers in both universes, it was clear that he had lived in his original universe for 18 years, and there he had even built the Justice League. It was like raising a child with great effort. How could he just let it go? Now that he knew how to return to his original universe, how could Leah not be excited? Tony coughed dryly. I know you want to go back, but now isn't the right time. I know. Don't worry. We'll talk after this Dark Elves issue is resolved. Leah smiled. Thor listened to the conversation between Leah and Tony in a daze. Although he didn't understand the spatial gradient calculation or anything like that, he understood that Leah seemed to be leaving. After just going through so much together, was she leaving so suddenly? Do you really have to go, Leah? Thor asked in a low voice. Leah reached out and patted Thor's shoulder. If you need me, you can call me anytime. Okay, it's a deal. I'll email you when the time comes. Thor smiled bewildered. As expected, seriously discussing this topic with Thor was a classic example of self-inflicted boredom. Tony then called Captain America to inform him that S.H.I.E.L.D. would intervene appropriately, at least contacting the authorities to evacuate the civilians around Greenwich before the Dark Elves appeared. Greenwich, United Kingdom. Winter was gradually approaching. Amidst the overcast and rainy sky, a few clouds appeared to be stirring, forming a hollow like a sewer. A wormhole. That was the sign of the beginning of the convergence of heaven and earth. The Dark Elf's ship is coming. Leah stood in the sky, his gaze fixed on Greenwich. Suddenly, he saw a 1,000-meter-tall space carrier, shaped like a crossed sword, emerging from one of the wormholes. Captain America's voice rang through the communication channel in his headset. Please report the exact location. We haven't seen anything. S.H.I.E.L.D. was unable to dispatch troops into the Kingdom of Corruption, so Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye were forced to join the battle. Tony, wearing his Mark 43 Iron Man suit, scanned the wormhole and detected traces of a cloaked warship. After all, the Dark Elf could only achieve visual invisibility, not magically enter another dimension. If it was the latter, even Leah wouldn't be able to detect it. 15 degrees southwest, the main entrance to the library. What do we say now? Tony activated the Iron Man suit's weapon system, frantically drawing on the Philosopher's Stone's energy, ready for battle. Dr. Banner slapped himself twice, and the next second, his body began to grow larger and turn green. Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye also prepared for battle. On the count of 3, let's attack together and destroy the Dark Elf carrier first, Leah suggested, and everyone agreed, then fell silent, listening to the voice. 3. Before he finished speaking, Leah's silver spear flashed with electricity, and he suddenly shot out, stabbing the carrier with a lightning-fast lance. I knew this guy likes to be in the spotlight. Tony blasted his engines to maximum, and soon after, the Philosopher's Stone suddenly ignited, radiating balls of lightning and fire. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the full force of everyone's attack slammed into the Dark Elf carrier's energy shield. Chapter 279, I also have Infinity Stones. Facing Leah's relentless barrage, the space carrier's energy shield was rapidly depleted. The entire blue light curtain dented, as if a balloon were about to burst. Roar! On the ground, the green fat man took the lead, rushing beneath the space carrier and crashing headfirst into the energy shield, frantically tearing at the blue light curtain in front of him. Inside the space carrier, Malekith, having obtained a complete supply of ether particles, trained cursed warriors with a more efficient method. In just a few tens of seconds, he had infused the power of ether into over 100 soldiers. Although only about 40 of these low-level Dark Elves survived, they all gained immense power. Go, crush all these troublemakers. From now on, this world will return to darkness. Malekith did not forget to give his men a pre-battle mobilization. The celestial bodies would reach peak strength in a dozen minutes, and he had to ensure that the ether particles were released at that moment. Despite the combined attack, the space carrier's energy shield only lasted 20 seconds before running out of energy and shattered. At that moment, a horde of Dark Elves swarmed out of the space carrier, interspersed with towering curse warriors covered in bone spurs. God, I wish I could go back to the days of fighting humans, Captain America grumbled helplessly, shield in hand, charging the Dark Elves. Black Widow followed closely behind, while Hawkeye climbed to the library's rooftop, bow drawn, providing ranged support. Malekith, thunder flashed in the sky. Thor raised Mjolnir high and slammed it into the ground as he descended. Lightning exploded like silver snakes, instantly wiping out a large number of Dark Elves. The curse warriors were also sent flying, but they quickly climbed to their feet, unharmed. Why run so far, Asgardians? Death will soon find you. Malekith waved at the curse warriors, signaling that this man was his to die. You'll die first, Thor roared, twirling his hammer and smashing it hard into Malekith's face. He wanted vengeance for the Asgardian warriors. You alone. Malekith remained calm. With a wave of his hand, the ether within him burst forth, flowing through the air and forming into a swarm of sharp swords that suddenly shot out. Boom! The ether dispersed Thor's lightning, sending him flying. As Thor faced Malekith head-on, Leah moved, covering 1,000 meters with a fleeting of a flash of light. A flash of cold light arrived, followed by a spear like a dragon. Thunder blazed from the silver spear, violently scattering the ether surrounding Malekith, piercing his head completely. However, Malekith remained motionless, the bloody hole in his head filled with a flood of ether, returning to its original state. You may not know this, but the ether is the Reality Stone, one of the 6 Infinity Stones. I can use it to alter reality. You can't kill me, ha ha ha, Malekith sneered at Lee. The ether around him instantly erupted, transforming into blood arrows that rained down like raindrops. The ether's energy, like a bloody mist, slammed into Lee, sending him flying. Bang! Lee's jet black battlesuit was instantly engulfed in a dark crimson wave, madly ravaging Lee's divine power like a venomous snake, devouring his energy. An Infinity Stone. I have one too. As one of the 6 Infinity Stones, the ether's power was undoubtedly formidable. Lee's divine power couldn't directly compete with a Reality Stone's energy, but Lee possessed 2 Infinity Stones, the Eye of Agamotto and the Time Stone. And then there was Loki's scepter, the Mind Stone, which he had wrested from Loki on the eve of the Battle of New York. Under the encroachment of the dark red blood mist, Leah formed hand seals, rapidly transforming them. The Eye of Agamotto then opened, and a burst of temporal energy erupted. Buzz! The dark red blood mist, fierce a moment before, now seemed to boil, stagnating in midair for a moment. The complete backlash was directed at Malekith. However, Malekith could now be seen as the carrier of the Infinity Stones. With a single wave of his hand, he regained control of the ether. Thor, seizing the perfect moment, raised Mjolnir high. A violent flash of lightning blazed, striking Malekith in a beam of lightning. HMPH, foolish, Malekith split the ether into two, one gazing warily at Leia, the other thrusting towards Thor. They collided with Thor's hammer, unleashing a violent concussion. At this moment, Leia pulled a Mind Stone from his silver bracelet. The Mind Stone had been loaned to Dr. Banner for a while, but later, S.H.I.E.L.D. had developed an interest in it, so Leia took possession of it. Leia produced a Mind Gem, emitting a yellow glow, and slapped it onto the silver spear in his hand. Infinity Stones are difficult to use on their own. They can only unleash their full power when attached to a tool. The Thunder Kirin, crafted from Uru, is a perfect vehicle for this. Buzz! The spear trembled, and a wave of dim yellow energy rippled out. Leia didn't rush to attack Malekith, but instead soared into the air and lashed out at the multitude of dark elves below. Boom! A wave of mind-shaking energy descended, suddenly enveloping the entire battlefield. Iron Man, the Hulk, Captain America, Black Widow, and the others were fiercely engaged in a fierce battle with the Dark Elves. Moment, as if deeply incited, all the Dark Elves waved their hands in anger, lost in a frenzy, and began to attack their companions, mistaking them for enemies. The Hulk roared, about to reach out and crush a Dark Elf's head. Suddenly, the Dark Elf lunged at his companion, engaging in a ferocious struggle with his comrade. The scene was bloody and bloody. The Hulk froze, then looked around. The same scene unfolded. Dark Elf clashed with Dark Elf. The sight grimaced at Malekith, who wished he could tear Leia apart. Only the cursed warriors could withstand this mental onslaught, having absorbed the faint etheric energy. Meanwhile, the wormholes in the sky multiplied. A moment later, 8 mirror-like wormholes appeared in the gray sky, layered one on top of the other, seemingly connecting in a straight line. A fiery hell, a world of frost, a dazzling sky, a dark underworld. The 4 realms that first became clear were those representing fire, ice, light, and darkness. Then, the forest of Vanaheim, the underworld of Helheim, and finally, Midgard, where everyone was. All 9 kingdoms had gathered. Chapter 280, Celestial Convergence. The Celestial Convergence will reach its peak in 5 minutes. We must. Tony's Iron Man suit erupted in thunder and fire, repelling a cursed warrior before heading to Captain America's aid, speaking into the comms. But before he could finish his words, both he and his suit vanished. Tony, where's he? Captain America held up his shield, blocking the cursed warrior's frantic hammering. Hulk grabbed the cursed warrior's leg from behind, swung it up, and slammed it into the ground, then leaped on it and stomped on it. Boom! 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 The ground shook with its stomping. With the celestial convergence now, the boundaries between the 9 kingdoms are blurring. Be careful, Leia spoke as he stabbed several more cursed warriors' heads. The next second, he found himself in a completely unfamiliar place. A world of frost. Cold ice and snow blew towards him, sending Leia's head spinning. This damn celestial convergence, Leia cursed, then ran around, but didn't return. He welded a portal in midair with his bare hands. The UK, Greenwich. As the celestial bodies converged and gradually took shape, the laws of the sky became utterly chaotic. Events violating the laws of physics abounded, nearly enough to make Thor's coffin nearly collapse. Thor didn't care about the laws of physics, he simply wanted to hammer Malekith to death. Faced with this chaotic situation, a single blow from his hammer solved all his problems. Then Thor realized his hammer had vanished. Where's my hammer? It's gone again. And this time, right in front of me. Ha ha ha, without Thor's hammer, you're like a tiger without claws and fangs. Malekith, in high spirits, swung his hands, sending a burst of ether particles cascading outward. Swish! 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 Watching the ether particles hurled at him frantically, Thor quickly dodged, but the dark red ether particles, like maggots on his tarsal bones, refused to be shaken off. Silvery sparks erupted in the air, followed by a ring of portals. Leia was welding the portals when a cloud of ether particles suddenly shot in. He quickly dodged, then flashed into the portal, closing it with a careless gesture, concealing his achievements. He sensed that most of the ether particles had flown to another world. Malekith froze. Go to hell, Leia appeared on the battlefield, activating his Archon form. Hundreds of clones rushed out, some rapidly slaughtering the Dark Elf warriors, while others attacked Malekith. After all, The Curse Warriors were incredibly powerful and numerous. Even with Captain America, Iron Man, and the others, it would be extremely difficult to deal with them. With each attack, Li Yi annihilated most of the Curse Warriors. Malekith was furious. As the Celestial Smile Convergence was about to reach its peak, he had to project ether particles into the 9 kingdoms. This is the day I've been waiting for. None of you can stop me. Malekith raised his hands, and the energy of the ether particles instantly erupted. A strange wave of energy emanated from space, knocking Li Yi's countless clones back to their original form. But Li Yi's original form was nowhere to be seen. Where is he? Where's that kid? Malekith manipulated the ether particles, continuously projecting them into the 9 kingdoms. He had already decided to fight Li Yi and his men in a final showdown, but the next second, they were gone. It felt like punching cotton. Could things be so easy and smooth? No matter. As long as I project the ether into the 9 kingdoms, I will receive endless power in return. Then, dark red particles flew toward 8 wormholes in the sky, but Malekith suddenly realized everything around him had stopped. A voice echoed through this space, as if through a pane of glass, from another dimension. Can you really stop this whole world? It'll disrupt the universe's timeline. No, the celestial bodies are converging, disrupting all laws. Pausing time for 5 minutes won't affect the integrity of the timeline. The speaker, a man in a pale yellow martial arts uniform, removed his hood, revealing a bald head. The eye of Agamotto, once worn around Li's neck, had somehow shifted to his body. The Sorcerer Supreme, the Ancient One. Mirror Dimension, go. Li extended a hand, and the mirror dimension flew out, enveloping Malekith as he radiated ether particles. In the mirror dimension, nothing could affect the real world. Are you, the Sorcerer Supreme of Midgard? Malekith looked at Li and the Ancient One, his expression grave. The Ancient One folded his hands, fluttering like 2 butterflies. Powerful magical force gathered, forming a fan of blades in his hands. This time, the Ancient One did not draw upon the power of the dark dimension. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Li, his gaze fixed on Malekith's ether particles. Li also poured divine power into the Mind Stone, emitting a powerful wave of psychic energy. I'll entangle him, giving you an opportunity. Are you sure you can kill him within a minute? The Ancient One asked. The celestial bodies converged for an extremely short period of time, so this patch of space could only remain still for a few minutes. If that time frame was exceeded, the universe's timeline would be disrupted. No problem, Li Yi responded. Before his silver spear could be thrust, the Mind Stone's energy thundered down. Buzz! Psychic shock. Malekith's face paled. He quickly manipulated the energy of the ether to counteract the force from the Mind Stone too, one half resisting Li Yi's psychic shockwaves, the other attacking the Ancient One. The eye of Agamotto opened, and a faint green energy formed into a circle of magical runes. It suddenly exploded as the Ancient One swung the fan blade. Touched by the emerald green energy, the dark red ether recoiled as if struck by electricity. On one side, the Reality Stone, on the other, the Time and Mind Stones attacked simultaneously. Malekith, armed with the Reality Stone, was already outnumbered. The Ancient One seized the opportunity, charging forward, his hands raining down like a torrential rain. Puff! 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 After several rounds of fighting, Malekith's body was ripped open by the Ancient One. Seeing the ether suppressed by the Time and Mind Stones, he launched a hasty counterattack, but was effectively blocked by the Ancient One's magical shield. While dealing with Li's half of the ether, it seemed as if it had lost its target. Malekith suddenly sensed something was wrong, realized Li had vanished again. Where? In the moment Malekith's attention was distracted, the mirror dimension shattered. A vast bolt of lightning, like a meteorite, descended from the sky, piercing Malekith's head like a falling meteor. No. I've planned for countless years, not to end here, but to witness the annihilation of the entire world, Malekith roared, and all the ether particles suddenly erupted, gathering like a sandstorm. Thinking of blocking Li Yi's shot, the closest Ancient One cast a spell with both hands. The energy of the Eye of Agamotto surged, causing the ether particles to suddenly pause. The next second, he also welded a portal in midair with his bare hands. Li launched a thunderous stab, and it was about to collide with the ether particles. At this moment, a portal suddenly appeared in front of him, emitting golden sparks. Chapter 281, I will come back. Li rushed into the portal and vanished. Ether particles shot out, but missed. Malekith's face paled, for he had mobilized all his ether to block Leah's attack. But at that moment, another portal appeared behind Malekith. With a swish, a dazzling spear of lightning shot out from behind, piercing Malekith's head in a flash of lightning. The power of the Mind Stone exploded again, its boundless energy shattering Malekith's will and thoughts. The turmoil of the ether particles gradually subsided. As if the wind had died down, it swirled in midair, condensing into a floating liquid. With a snap, Malekith stumbled and fell to his knees, his eyes staring blankly ahead as he slowly lost his life. "Quick, dissolve the mirror dimension," the Ancient One warned. Leah immediately waved his hand, and the mirror dimension vanished, returning the three to reality. The wind picked up again, and the battlefield, previously frozen in place, was throbbing. At this moment, the fighting resumed. Captain America was pinned to the ground by a frenzied cursed warrior. Behind him, Black Widow, her face blood-stained, grabbed her dark elf weapon and shot the cursed warrior in the head. Iron Man fired his energy cannon continuously, while Hulk and Thor stood back to back, fending off the siege of 6 or 7 cursed warriors. "Your king is dead." A ceasefire. Leah slammed his silver spear into the ground, and the energy of the Mind Stone rippled out, causing all on the battlefield to cease their attacks. Ancient One captured the floating ether particles in midair and cast a spell. The scattered particles converged, depriving the cursed warriors of their source of power. Time passed silently. The celestial convergence lasted only a moment before it quickly separated and vanished into the sky. "It's over," Captain America gasped, his body already drenched in sweat. Fighting an alien warrior was no easy feat. "Yes, it's over," the Ancient One sealed his hands and closed the eye of Agamotto. This magical artifact had originally belonged to Kamar-Taj, so now it could be considered returned to its rightful owner. Iron Man fell from the sky, the nanosteel on his body vanishing. The Hulk calmed down, his body shrinking until he transformed back into Dr. Banner. "Heimdall, open the Rainbow Bridge and take me back," Thor ordered the remaining Dark Elf captives to stand together. He prepared to transport them and their spaceship to Asgard. However, there was nothing in the sky. "That? Heimdall has been convicted of treason and imprisoned," Leah reminded Thor. "Father, take me back. My all-knowing and omnipotent Father Odin." Thor raised his hammer and shouted to the sky. The scene fell silent again. Not only Tony and his companions, but even some brave civilians from Greenwich came over. They saw a man in a red cape, who looked like Thor, looking at the sky for some unknown purpose. "Thor, congratulations, you might be on the front page of the UK tomorrow." "Well, your father and mother should be discussing their vacation plans, so they probably don't have time to deal with you," Leah continued to explain. "Then what should I do?" Thor's face darkened, and Tony laughed unkindly. After thinking for a moment, Thor raised his hammer again and roared at the sky, "Loki, I know you are watching. Teleport me back immediately, otherwise I will beat you up every time I see you next time." Sure enough, a few seconds later, a colorful light fell from the sky, enveloping Thor and the Dark Elf prisoners. Amidst the light, Thor waved to Leah and the others. "Leah, wait for me for a few days." After "thank you, Thor," Leah thanked him. Before he finished speaking, the rainbow-colored light in the sky vanished. 2 days later, at Tony's villa base, Captain America, Black Widow, and the others had arrived. Chatting with Tony explained solemnly. Leah waved her hand. "I was just kidding." "Oh, that's a coincidence, because I was kidding too," Tony said with a triumphant smile. In the courtyard, a rainbow of light descended, and Thor appeared with a container containing the Tesseract. Dr. Banner, seeing this, hurriedly brought out an instrument from his room. "Excellent. Thor's here, and he's brought the Tesseract. Let's begin our journey through the universe." "Thor, give the cube to Dr. Banner." Leah pointed at Dr. Banner and the instrument he had pulled out. Thor smiled and handed the cube over. "My father and mother have gone to Norway. They're going to spend their last years there. I really don't know whether I should be happy or sad." A hint of melancholy crossed Thor's brow. From the moment Odin decided to abdicate the throne, the burden on Thor's shoulders grew heavier. "What about Loki? He took on the form of my father and continued to sit on the Sun Throne. That's why I can leave Asgard without fear." Thor spoke as he pulled a bottle of whiskey from the room and took a swig. "Well, Thor, the Sorcerer Supreme told me that in the near future, this world will be plunged into an endless catastrophe." "I know, I understand. I will eliminate all threats before this catastrophe strikes." "Okay, one more thing," Thor. Remember my advice, if you meet a stronger opponent, remember to smash his head. Oh, Leah, you haven't forgotten about the cursed warrior. Ha ha ha, I remember. As the two chatted, Tony activated the cosmic cube, and a passage suddenly opened in the air above the courtyard. I should go. Leah stood up and walked to the bottom of the passage. Tony handed Leah's space-time ripple recorder back to him. The others gathered around, watching silently. Did you agree to come back anytime if anything happened to us? Tony asked. Leah solemnly, I promise. Goodbye, everyone. After saying goodbye, Leah leaped out and rushed into the tunnel. With the experience of traveling through the time tunnel last time, this time was much smoother. P.S. Leah took a mind stone with him, and when the purple potato spirit was collecting the infinity stones, he was bewildered to discover that one was missing. Or perhaps the infinity stones can't travel across the universe, and even if they are taken away, they will be rolled back to the original game. Feel free to leave a comment to discuss. Chapter 282, The Fourth Robin. It was a dark night in Detroit. Rain pattered down from the sky. Pedestrians, bundled up in their clothes, hurried along the streets, instinctively avoiding the dim, narrow alleys. Although America had legalized vigilantes, superhero groups like the Justice League occasionally emerged to combat crime. However, the world was too vast, and the heroes were too busy. At that moment, the entrance to an alley was blocked on both sides by 4 or 5 cars. Several men in black emerged from the vehicles on both sides, converging along the sides of the alley toward the center. Seeing this situation, passers-by basically ran as far away as possible. If it wasn't a gang fight, it was a drug and gun deal. Have you brought the stuff? The leader of the Bone Spur gang, accompanied by his men, asked the group before them. Across the street was Detroit's underground arms dealer, a frequent target of gangs from not only Detroit but also surrounding cities. The man handling this transaction was a portly man with a greasy face. He held a cigar between his teeth and waved to his men behind him. Boss Ian, this isn't our first time doing business. We know the rules. Let's inspect the goods quickly. Hand over the money, hand over the goods. Hurry up. The Justice League's minions have been around lately, so we have to be careful. Several of his men carried several boxes, set them on the ground, and opened them. They contained weapon samples for this transaction. Boom. Lightning crackled in the sky, illuminating a dark shadow that flashed by in the air. Who are you? Damn it, Ian. Are you bringing cops? The fat underground arms dealer instinctively reached for his gun. The Bone Spur gang members across the way also became alert, drawing their weapons. Bone Spur gang leader Ian snorted coldly, Bah. Don't try to be so rude. I thought you were bringing cops, Bill-o. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Men on both sides were struck by darts. While not killed instantly, blood spurted out, creating a horrific sight. Drop your weapons and turn yourself into the police, and I'll let you go. A young boy, seemingly 8 or 9, appeared from a building on the left side of the alley. He wore a dark red combat uniform, a black cape, and an eye patch, his features sharp and angular. A coldness in his eyes belied his age. Watch out for Batman. Is Batman here? Lights. Lights. Find Batman. Tell me where Batman is. The gangs on both sides ignored the strangely dressed boy. They raised their guns, aiming them skyward, searching for the presence of the Dark Knight. Asshole. How dare you ignore me? Parked car in the alley. Ian, I'll leave this kid to you. Everyone else, keep an eye on the surroundings. Batman could at any moment. The fat man's words completely enraged the little boy. He flung his hands together, his fingers filled with shimmering silver darts. With a swish, the darts flew out. Swish. 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 On the ground, the attack distance shortened, and the dart's accuracy greatly increased. 8 darts flew to the left and right. With a few puffs, the carotid arteries of the 8 gang members present were severed, and blood gushed out. You bastards, dare to kill my men. Die? The greasy fat man expelled his cigar, raised 2 Uzi pistols in both hands, and fired a burst of darts at the little boy. Da-da-da. The Uzi's firing rate was extremely fast, and the little boy quickly lifted his cape behind him to block the bullets. He ran at a rapid speed, rushed to the wall, and suddenly turned back. He swung his hands again, firing a burst of darts, killing several more people on the spot. My name isn't bitch, I'm Robin. The young boy rushed into the gang, 2 special batons appearing in his hands, single-handedly taking on dozens of them. Boom. Thunder streaked across the sky again, and the rain intensified. Atop a tall building, a group of men in hooded assassin uniforms, carrying bows and arrows, also secretly watched the battle. Their leader, gazing intently at Robin, addressed the group, "Kill Damian Wayne. Only then will the Assassin's League stop becoming Bruce Wayne's personal power and becoming a subsidiary of a disgusting organization like the Justice League. Kill Damian Wayne for the Assassin's League. Kill." The Assassin's League warriors charged out at high speed, weaving through the buildings before finally leaping into the alley. Damian Wayne, only the fourth-generation Robin, single-handedly inflicted heavy casualties on dozens of men from both gangs, nearly wiping out the Bone Spur gang's men. Only the portly man feigned death, waiting for Robin to finish off the others. The portly man quietly crawled toward the alley entrance. But after just 2 steps, a dark figure descended from the sky, katanas gleaming in their hands. It was as terrifying as it could be. "Oh my god. I'm just selling arms, what's the big deal? Don't kill me, don't kill me, I'll give you whatever you want." In a single encounter, the fat man's head was severed, his eyes filled with fear. Every other living person present was dispatched, their katanas dripping with blood. After killing all the extraneous personnel present, they descended upon their target, the young man in the alley. The fourth Robin, Damian Wayne. Holy shit, these are members of the League of Assassins. Damian Wayne, having grown up in the League, recognized them instantly. Seeing both roads blocked, his heart sank, and he roared with a sullen face, "I am the grandson of Reshko, son of Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne. I command you to stop." The young man's voice was remarkably resonant, yet no one listened. In the vast night, a sharp arrow pierced the sky, hurtling towards Robin Damian Wayne. Looking at the shooter, Damian frowned. "Magician, are you going to kill me?" Magician was Malcolm Merlin's name in the League of Assassins. Damian had known him for years, but he had never imagined he would be killed today. Damian parried the arrow with his staff and did a backflip. The assassin's katana slashed at the young man, and he swung his staff, desperately trying to block it. "Damn it. I shouldn't have snuck out today. Did Dad even notice I was gone?" Damian thought to himself. To avoid Bruce Wayne noticing his sneaking out, he'd made a dummy and stuffed it inside his bed, so that from outside, he'd be mistaken for a slumbering wreck. The young man might have held his own against a group of gang members, but he was quickly overwhelmed by a team of highly trained assassins. After several rounds of fighting, he sustained numerous wounds and struggled to hold on under the assassin's barrage of blows. Malcolm Merlin smiled. "Damian Wayne, kid, give up. You won't survive this." Boom. Thunder exploded again, this time with an unprecedented deafening roar. The crowd below looked up. The lightning seemed to form a vortex in the sky, a strange and eerie sight. "What the hell is that?" Malcolm Merlin cursed. While everyone's attention was distracted by the strange lightning, Damian Wayne launched a smoke bomb and sped away. "Catch him. If we don't kill him today, we'll all die." With those words, the assassins flew out, pursuing young Robin. Young Robin Damian Wayne ran desperately, shouting to the sky, "Shazam! Is that you? Help! Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash. Daddy. Whoever it is, help!" However, before Damian had gotten far, and was about to be surrounded by the assassins, a bolt of lightning descended from the vortex of lightning in the sky. Crash! The surrounding sky suddenly lit up, and a man emerged from the thunderbolt. "Kill!" The warriors of the Assassin's League, upon seeing this sudden appearance, knew that no matter who it was, their plan for today must remain undiscovered. Anyone present would be killed. Professionals would later collect their bodies, ensuring a seamless conclusion to today's events. Seeing another innocent person about to be slaughtered, Damian Wayne threw his last dart, "Uncle, be careful," with a clang. The katana slashed across the man's neck, as if striking a piece of super alloy steel. The indestructible katana shattered, shattering into dozens of fragments that flew in all directions. Damian's dart finally launched, originally aimed at the katana, but now missing. Silence fell upon the crowd. The assassin, in particular, stared at the katana, now only the hilt remaining, then at the unharmed man before him. He vaguely recalled the little girl who had assaulted Lazile Ogu at the Assassin's League headquarters a year ago. The man who emerged from the thunderbolt was, of course, Leah, who had just traveled through space. At the end of the time tunnel, he suddenly heard someone cry for help, and following the sound, he descended to the ground. Whoosh! A sharp arrow flew towards him. Leah didn't even look at it. He snapped his fingers and turned to look at the little boy. You were the one who yelled for help. No, that's right, it was me, Uncle. Is your neck made of iron? The short boy stared at Leah with his head tilted back. Witnessing the steel knife shattering Leah's neck, he was clearly agitated, wondering if this was some kind of Kagan magic trick, something he'd love to learn. Leah smiled. I'm only 18, you should call me brother. Oh, I'm only 8, you're 10 years older than me, what's wrong with calling you uncle? The boy's every move carried a hint of rebelliousness, and Leah sensed that he must have undergone brutal training since childhood and had killed many people. However, before he could ask more questions, the assassins from the Assassin's League had already surrounded him. Malcolm Merlin stood at the front, staring at Leah. Who are you? If possible, please stay out of our business. You can't mess with us, Uncle, these people want to kill me. I'm a member of the Justice League, a reserve member. Help me escape, and I'll introduce you to the Justice League. Let me tell you, the benefits are great, others want to join, but they haven't even started yet. The little boy looked nervous. He saw how Leah had deflected arrows with one hand, a feat Damien had only seen from his father. Plus, Leah wasn't afraid of a samurai sword's blow, he must be a powerful psychic. The Assassin's League warriors were powerful, but facing a psychic was a different story. So both sides were trying to win Leah over. Leah's mouth twitched at the boy's words. This universe's Justice League had built itself. Why did they need your introduction? Ahem, Malcolm Merlin, why did you kill this boy? Who is he? Malcolm Merlin's face changed when Leah called his name, and he asked, do you know me? I not only know you, I also know your daughter, Thea Quinn. Leah glared at him and said again, I'll ask you again, who is this little boy? His name is Damian Wayne, the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul. We are Talia al Ghul's men. We want to invite Master Damian back to the League of Assassins. Malcolm Merlin naturally couldn't tell his plan, so he changed his words and smiled at Leah. Friend, this is a family affair between Bruce Wayne and the League of Assassins, please don't meddle in it, haha. Do you think I'm stupid? Leah sneered, and wanted to kill people to silence them without saying a word. It was a family affair. Malcolm Merlin was really a liar. Leah had previously heard from certain sources that Bruce Wayne suspected he had an illegitimate child, but this had never been confirmed. A year earlier, when Oliver was severely injured by the League of Assassins ninja master, Rai Shackle, Felicity asked Leah and the others to rescue Oliver, and Bruce Wayne accompanied them. Meeting his father-in-law was one thing, but more importantly, he learned the whereabouts of Talia al Ghul. Later, Bruce went to find his old lover and unexpectedly discovered he was a father. Wasn't that surprising? Wasn't that thrilling? Wasn't that surprising? Uncle, don't listen to them. They're bad guys, they want to kill me. Robin Damian hid behind Leah. He had no other choice. It seemed his father hadn't noticed he'd slipped out today. Target a low magic resistance of some physical-based esper. It could penetrate even the defenses of a body of steel. Kill them, the assassins present were all death-defying. At Malcolm Merlin's command, everyone rushed towards Leah and Damian Wayne, swords raised, determined to die. Chapter 283, Brutal Bearchild. The rain continued to fall, the autumn night wind from the high-rise building stinging faces. At Malcolm Merlin's command, the surrounding assassins attacked simultaneously. Facing Leah, one of them lifted his foot, dipped in the rain, and swung it into Leah's eyes. They were all members of the Assassin's League, and their martial arts were to use any available means to achieve a single, fatal blow. As the rain lashed down, Leah closed his eyes, just as they had hoped. Several katanas blazed down simultaneously, some aimed at Leah, others at Robin Damian Wayne. Uncle, be careful, Damian exclaimed, raising his batons in both hands, ready to charge forward for a decisive blow. However, a large hand behind him pinned him down and protected him. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of katanas breaking echoed, whether striking Leah's back or Leah reaching out to block the blows from the little boy in his arms. As their weapons shattered, no one retreated. They drew their short knives from their waists, ready to engage in close combat. Get out, Leah swung his hand, and everything he touched, whether it was a steel dagger or the flesh of an assassin, shattered in an instant. Blood spurted out like a blood plum blossom in full bloom in the dead of winter. Oh my God, Damian's mouth opened into an O-shaped shape, his face filled with disbelief as he watched the powerful assassins of the Assassin's League appear as vulnerable as paper before Leah. Though young, He had been exposed to killing since childhood, and killing a person was no more complicated than stepping on an ant. Bruce Wayne had brought him back to the city and repeatedly instilled in him the no-killing principle, but children are rebellious. The more their father forbade them, the more they insisted on doing it. So, seeing the blood splattering and mangled limbs caused by Leah, Damian Wayne was not afraid, but extremely excited. "Uncle, you're so awesome, Uncle. Uncle, watch out." Damian's face was stained red with blood, but his expression was incredibly excited. He pointed at Malcolm Merlyn, who had leaped up behind Leah. Malcolm Merlyn appeared mysteriously behind Leah, holding the dagger radiating magical energy in his backhand, and stabbed Leah in the back. Leah seemed unaware of the presence behind him and stood there motionless. Bang, as if made of chocolate. Malcolm's smile froze on his face, and he stared in disbelief at the shattered hilt of the magic dagger in his hand. What about the magic dagger that was supposed to be a perfect counter to physical psychics? What about the magic dagger that could even pierce Superman's steel body? Misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding. Malcolm's face paled as he stepped back. Leah turned to look at him. How can a few random runes like these be considered magic? There was indeed a pulsation of magic from his dagger, but it was extremely weak. A magical weapon of this level could only bully those with zero magic resistance. Anyone with some resistance, like Diana or Ares, wouldn't even be able to cut through a hair. Yes, this isn't a magic dagger. It's just a joke. Before he could finish his words, Malcolm suddenly threw a smoke bomb. When did you get ahead of me? What's the point of knowing that for a dead man? Leah stepped forward. Malcolm, having just bumped his head against Leah, was now staggering. Don't kill me. I can give you a lot of money, magician. You can't get away. The little boy, Damian, caught up and found Malcolm lying on the ground. He glanced at Leah in surprise. Uncle, you knocked him down. You're so cool. Why were you running so fast just now? Is that your superpower? Invulnerable and able to move so fast? Oh my god, if you could fly, you'd be Superman. Damian spoke excitedly, kicking Malcolm in the side. He looked up at Leah and said, "Can you leave this guy to me? I'm going to tell my mom that he's starting a rebellion and trying to kill me. There must be more rebels in the Assassin's League. I'm going to find them all." Poor magician Malcolm Merlyn was pinned to the ground by an 8-year-old boy. Leah nodded. Okay, he was going to deal with you anyway. Now I'll leave it to you. Thank you, Uncle. Can you call me brother? Sure, Uncle, brother, Ling. Friendship level increased to friendly. Unlocked character card, Damian Wayne, 4th generation Robin. The system's voice echoed in Leah's mind. Leah hadn't even checked the system interface since arriving in this world. Sure enough, except for the newly unlocked Damian Wayne, Elsa's character cards had regained their color, no longer the unusable grayish-white. Since Leah had already acquired 65% of the optimized Kryptonian genes, the remaining 5% could be increased over time. As for the main card slot, Leah decisively equipped Wonder Woman's card. The other character cards were all equipped in the secondary slots. After a moment of confusion, Leah saw Damian pull out a knife from somewhere and skillfully sever Malcolm Merlyn's tendons and limbs, stabbing him several times in vital areas. He completely ignored Malcolm Merlyn, who was howling in pain. Kid, what are you doing? Even Leah's eyelids twitched. It wasn't that he had never seen such a bloody scene before, but he had never seen an 8-year-old do such a thing so skillfully. Damian replied calmly, that way he won't run away. I'm just a kid. What if I can't keep an eye on him and he kills me? His words made so much sense that Leah found himself speechless. Which direction is Metropolis? Leah asked. You want to go to Metropolis? Perfect, I'm going back to the Justice League headquarters. Take my car and I'll take you. Damian raised his hand and pointed to the entrance of another alley, where a specially modified Mercedes black Benz sports car with a low ride height was parked. Uncle, can you lend a hand and help me stuff this guy into the trunk of my bike? Do you have a driver's license? Why do I need a driver's license? If the police stop me, I'll run away. They can't even catch me, and you still have the nerve to ask me for my driver's license? If I really get caught by the police. Anyway, you have to believe that I have never been caught by the police. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284, He is back. At the Justice League's Earth headquarters, Cyborg Victor Stone was, as usual, poring over satellite data to pass the time when he suddenly detected an unusual energy fluctuation. A special energy fluctuation has occurred in Detroit. Upon discovering it was a special energy fluctuation, Cyborg's attention was instantly alerted. His hands transformed into countless data cables, connecting to the mainframe at Justice League headquarters. Instantly, all of Detroit's traffic surveillance was activated. Simultaneously, Wayne Enterprise satellites, modified with Kryptonian technology, were also trained on Detroit. Batman's son went out to play again. There was thunder, and the surveillance went offline. Is this Avenger Leah? He's back. The satellite's live feed showed a black Mercedes-Benz sports car driving out of Detroit, followed by 4 or 5 police cars. The car's license plate was a special hidden number, completely invisible to ordinary people, but Cyborg knew exactly who it belonged to. It was the special hidden license plate assigned to their Justice League unit. Generally speaking, the police wouldn't specifically pursue that particular car unless it was driven by an unlicensed underage child. Locking the satellite on the Mercedes-Benz, Cyborg could clearly see that the passenger seat was none other than Leah, who had been missing for almost a year. As Cyborg watched Leah through the screen, he seemed to sense something. He looked up at the sky and waved his hand in the direction of the satellite. It's him. He's back. Cyborg didn't smile for a long time. He couldn't think of anything else at the moment. He immediately switched on the emergency comm channel and shouted, "Justice League, assemble." In Metropolis, Clark was holding Lois. After a fierce battle, the two of them fell asleep in each other's arms the window and swiftly headed for Justice League headquarters. A similar scene unfolded in Gotham City. A pitch-black, bat-like chariot leaped from the Batcave and sped towards Justice League headquarters. In Central City, a flash of lightning flashed across the streets. "Uncle, 5 miles ahead is Metropolis. Where we just talking about?" "Oh, right. 6 months ago, the Flash fought the Reverse Flash, and a wormhole appeared over Central City. You told me about that." Leah listened as Damian Wayne recounted the events of the past year, even though the young man had only been there a few months. Like many teenagers his age, Damian Wayne was incredibly fascinated by superheroes, except for his dad, Batman. Despite Superman's repeated assertions that Batman was also a truly remarkable superhero, Damian Wayne always believed his dad was a complete loser, and that he should retire, earn money, and strive to overthrow the American regime as soon as possible and establish himself as king to get a beating. Then you definitely haven't heard of this. A wormhole appeared above Central City, but that incident wasn't over yet. That wormhole connected to another universe, bringing the Flash another powerful rival, Professor Zoom. Professor Zoom is from the universe next door to ours. He enjoys stealing the speed of speedsters, aiming to become the only and fastest speedster in the world, Leah replied with a dull interest. Through Damian Wayne, he had a basic understanding of what had transpired that year. The most significant event was Reverse Flash's plan to travel back in time. However, unlike the plot of his previous life, this world's Flash single-handedly defeated Reverse Flash. When Reverse Flash threatened to die together, Superman intervened to save the Flash. Together, they stopped the black hole that appeared in Central City. This black hole connected to the neighboring universe, Earth 96. Professor Zoom, from that universe, arrived in this world through the wormhole. Upon learning of the Flash's existence, he planned to steal his speed force. The two chatted for a while, and suddenly, an oasis appeared on either side of the deserted, dark road. Amidst the oasis, a towering, gleaming silver building stood. It was the Justice League's Earth headquarters. Damian Wayne cheered as he spotted the Justice League headquarters, his body slumping slightly as he pressed the accelerator. The kid poked his head out only when the sports car was within range of the Justice League. Don't be fooled by the lack of walls, there are defense systems everywhere. But don't worry, I have access. Impressive, isn't it? Damian was bragging to Leah when he suddenly noticed several figures flying out of the building. He looked closely. Leading the group was Wonder Woman Diana, her Lieutenant Fyra, Superman Clark Kent, and Supergirl Kara. Huh? Why are there so many people? Damian's gaze swept over the crowd. The kid didn't think twice, naturally taking the opportunity to boast. Hey, they're definitely here to pick me up. It can't be helped, I'm the most popular here. But I'm telling you, don't mess with Wonder Woman, she's incredibly brutal. And that violent Kara, Leah and Damian got out of the car together. Superman and the others lined up, their eyes flicking from Damian to Leah. Seeing Leah, Kara rushed forward first. Leah stood still, startling Damian. Seeing Kara rushing towards him, the arrogant brat acted as if he had seen his nemesis and dodged behind Leah. However, Kara's target wasn't Damian, but Leah. She threw herself into Leah's arms, her eyes gleaming as she demanded, "Brother Leah, where have you been all this year? Why didn't you come?" Well, Leah hugged Kara close. After not seeing her for a year, Kara had grown considerably taller. His gaze swept across the crowd, finally landing on the Flash. "Barry, we have to make a rule. Time travel is prohibited. Otherwise, I'm sorry, Leah, I'm so sorry. I swear I didn't mean it." A year ago, Central City was threatened by a weather wizard. To prevent this catastrophe, the Flash increased his speed to unprecedented limits, breaking through the time barrier for the first time and traveling back to a day in the past. It was at that moment that he accidentally bumped into Leah, who had returned from the Injustice universe. "Don't stand there like an idiot. Let's go inside and talk. It's late at night, and we came out specially to meet you." Diana was much more mature and steady than she had been a year ago. Although she was calm inside, her lips trembled slightly as she spoke, revealing her inner excitement. Chapter 285, Superhero of the Deep Sea. "By the way, why isn't Batman here?" Leah asked, not seeing Bruce Wayne. Cyborg checked the electronic display on his wrist. "He's still on his way. He solved a robbery while passing through Gotham City, so he's a little late." With that, everyone headed back toward the headquarters, leaving Damian bewildered. He caught up with his lieutenant, Fiora, who was walking at the rear, and asked, "Hey, that old man, who is he?" The question surprised Fiora. "Huh? You came back with General Leah, and you don't know who he is?" He said his name is Leah. Omega. The Avenger's real name seems to be Leah Rogers. Damian Wayne covered his mouth. He hadn't expected that this random old man he'd met could be the mastermind behind the creation of the Justice League. And unlike the other Justice League giants, this Avenger wasn't constantly in the spotlight. Little was known about him, and many even considered him a mere legend. Damian hadn't known about the Avengers before. It wasn't until his father brought him into the Justice League that he learned about them from internal documents. However, no matter how detailed these documents were, they were still far less comprehensive than meeting real people. Therefore, compared to the Avengers, Damian knew more about Superman, the Flash, Wonder Woman, and the like. Everyone arrived at the Justice League's meeting room left, only to return home the previous night. Diana sat beside Leah, holding his hand. "What's wrong? What are you thinking about?" "Oh, I was thinking." "Bruce's kid seems scared of Kara," Leah randomly said. Kara snorted. "He's a jerk. The first time we met, he actually said he wanted me to be his handmaiden, and then I gave him a little lesson. You broke 3 of his ribs." "That's no small lesson," corrected Kara. "Tisk, who told him to be so vulnerable?" Kara glanced at a child cowering at the door and raised her fist, sending the child scurrying away. Superman also smiled and said, "You don't know, when Bruce's kid first got here, he was really naughty. He wanted to compete with the Flash in speed, with Cyborg in strength, and with me in wealth." "And you lost?" Leah asked instinctively. "No, I beat him up." Superman gave a rather unkind smile. "I was implementing your educational principles. Naughty kids with bad tempers are probably just pretending. A good beating will do the trick." As he spoke, Bruce Wayne, dressed in Batman's costume, walked in, carrying Damian Wayne. "Avengers, long Batman time no see. Did this kid give you any trouble?" Batman head bowed, his eyes drifting to Leah, who sat at the head table. The naughty kid seemed a little incredible that Leah was actually sitting in the seat he had always dreamed of. "No, Damian is a good kid. It's just that his values are a little different from the average kid. It seems you might need some more education." Leah tried to be tactful. Batman, of course, knew Damian's character perfectly well, but even Gotham's Dark Knight couldn't handle this troubled kid. Indeed, the kid takes after his mother. "Well, since everyone's here, let's briefly tell you about the year you were away." Batman rested his chin on his hands and glanced around. Although Leah had learned some things from the kid, he was still a child, so he could only grasp the surface. "Okay, go ahead. Remember that Aquaman the Flash from another world casually mentioned?" Batman tapped the table a few times. And a video clip from Deep Sea appeared on the screen. I won't repeat the videos the other Flash showed last year. Let's talk about some of the latest discoveries. The deep sea has always been a forbidden zone. Even Superman rarely conducts deep sea missions. However, there's a group of high-tech robbers in the deep sea who specialize in robbing submarines. Not long ago, a superpowered individual saved a submarine. His nickname is Aquaman. The screen showed internal surveillance footage of a submarine, showing a group of robbers in black alloy combat suits slaughtering the submarine's crew. At that moment, it felt as if someone had gouged a deep hole in the submarine. A tall man with a muscular upper body and long hair rushed in and beat down the submarine's crew with just a few punches and kicks. This person, wearing nothing but swimming trunks, can dive to depths of 300 meters. He's definitely a superhuman, perhaps even on par with Wonder Woman or Superman, Batman offered his analysis. World record states that the deepest a human can dive without equipment is 113 meters. Any deeper and the terrifying water pressure would crush their internal organs. Yet, the person in the video, wearing only shorts at 400 meters, looks like a joke. What else could he be but a superhuman? Have you figured out his identity? Leah was certain almost a figure on the screen was this universe's Aquaman. Batman nodded. I found out, his name is Arthur Curry, son of Tom Curry, the keeper of the lighthouse in Port Sheen. He has no higher education. I visited him in Port Sheen before, but he refused to communicate with me. Now Cyborg uses satellites to monitor his whereabouts at any time. At least he is not a threat. I heard that someone blew a hole in the sky of Central City. Are there dangerous elements from the neighboring universe appearing in our universe? Leah said, looking at a man who claimed to be the fastest man in the world. Sorry, Avengers, I swear it was an accident. The Flash smiled bitterly and was about to explain, but Superman coughed lightly. Let me explain this matter. After a pause, Superman continued, the situation is a bit complicated. The Harrison Wells you know is not the real him. He is a man named Albert Swan pretending to be him. He is the murderer who killed Barry's mother. However, this is not what I want to talk about today. Regarding the final battle, I think someone was behind it. The blacks spanning the universe, including Professor Zoomhole from the neighboring universe, are just decoys. There is an enemy who is trying to attract our attention and has come to Earth. Chapter 286, Superman's Doubts. Have you found any clues about this enemy you mentioned? Leah absolutely didn't believe Superman's perception was wrong. Even in the most chaotic of situations, his super hearing and super brain would subconsciously register certain things, details he himself wasn't aware of. So when Superman suspected someone was behind this, Leah's first thought was someone. However, Superman shook his head. There's no evidence. I've revisited the situation countless times, and had Cyborg meticulously review the satellite data, as well as everything since then. In short, the final conclusion is that there's nothing unusual, except for Professor Zoom and a shark man who nearly ate me. The Flash shrugged. To him, the greatest threat was desperate to steal his speed force. As for the hidden agenda, that was just Superman's perception. Don't say that, Flash. Superman's perception is rarely wrong, Leah said. Batman agreed is helping with the final data adjustments. We'll be launching in 2 months. I suggest naming it Watchtower, a space station to protect Earth. I'm terrible at naming. What do the rest of you think? Leah looked at the others. Regardless of the version, the Justice League's space base is called Watchtower, and Leah couldn't think of a better name. If he had to choose a name, he'd probably call it something like Nanshanman or Shenzhou 1. Watchtower wouldn't be better. As expected, Present, except Damian, agreed on the name Watchtower. It was getting late. Batman was anxious to get home and beat his son, Superman was anxious to see his girlfriend, and Leah was anxious to, Batman have a private chat with Diana. So, the meeting was adjourned, and everyone went home to their mothers. Before leaving, Damian, knowing he was going to get beaten tonight, clung to Leah's thigh, refusing to follow back. However, Diana gave Leah a look that said, you know what I mean, and Leah mercilessly kicked Damian away. The poor kid had no idea what was happening, and the next second, his father dragged him out. Despite his screams, no one paid him any attention. Brother Leah, can you tell me where you've been this past year? Kara followed Leah out of the meeting room. Her face had grown longer than a year ago, no longer as chubby, but still looked like a doll, making anyone want to hug and kiss her. Okay, Kara, but it's late now, and you should go to bed. I'll tell you tomorrow morning, okay, Leah said, winking at Viola behind Kara. As expected of his aide-de-camp, Viola clearly understood Leah's intentions. She picked up little Kara and whispered, "It's late, General Leah must be tired. Let's look for him tomorrow." With Viola's words, Kara finally relented. She stared at Leah seriously. "Then it's a deal. Don't disappear tomorrow, or I'll definitely follow you." "Of course, I always keep my word." Leah patted Kara's head, escorted the little girl to the bedroom, and then returned to his own room. As soon as he closed the door, Diana approached with a resentful look on her face. "Why do you look like you've eaten me? Don't you miss me?" Leah smirked, placing his hand on Diana's waist. Embracing the person he'd been dreaming of, he whispered in her ear. Diana blushed slightly, snorted, and, in revenge, bit Leah's ear hard. It was the bite force of a god. After all, even a body of steel would have felt the pain. "Leah, you're not having any affairs, are you?" "Why, you don't even trust me?" "I swear to God. I'm definitely not." Leah patted his chest. "Alcohol shouldn't be considered an issue, right?" After hearing Leah's assurance, Diana rolled her eyes at him. Leah wanted to explain further. "Don't say anything." The goddess extended her white index finger and touched Leah's lips. Her rosy lips trembled slightly, and she uttered a seductive, silent word, "Kissed me." Leah couldn't hold it back any longer. The volcano that had been raging for a year suddenly erupted. With one hand, he grasped Diana's slender waist, and with the other, he hooked her long, toned legs, pressing her against the bedroom wall. He kissed her hard. Diana closed her eyes, clasped her hands around Leah's neck, and sucked on her lips eagerly, as if afraid that if she let go, she would fly away. The two men clung to each other like an octopus, their cumbersome clothing violently torn off by the goddess. A frank exchange of words. On an American intercity highway, a black Batmobile sped by. Batman held the steering wheel with one hand, while Robin Ivy sat beside him, a look of rage on his face. "It's just a few murders, why get so mad?" Damian muttered softly, his eyes filled with a look of resentment. Batman, in the driver's seat, took a deep breath. "Damian, you're not a killer. And this time, I'm not blaming you for the killings, but for not noticing you were being followed. Your vigilance was terrible. Values aren't formed overnight." Before meeting Batman, Damian Wayne was trained as a killer by the League of Assassins. Batman's insistence on not killing stems largely from his fear that controlling the lives of others would lead him to become like the Joker. After all, in a haven of crime like Gotham City, without a clear conscience, one could easily go insane. Damian, however, was different. The key to growth and education was different. To him, killing a person was no different than killing an ant. He hadn't seen anyone develop psychological problems from stepping on an ant. Of course, this wasn't a reason to condone Damian Wayne's reckless killings. Batman had been indoctrinating him with his own ideas and severely punishing Damian for killing criminals, but the results were minimal. "Please, how many times do I have to tell you? I didn't kill those gang members. It was the assassins from the League of Assassins. Although they were targeting me, they were definitely going to eliminate anyone who knew about it, and then they took out the gang members along the way." Damian Wayne's story was half-truths. Even if his father didn't believe him, he had no solid evidence. Batman's face darkened. "Where are those assassins from the League of Assassins? Lee killed them. I have nothing to do with it. Go blame Lee if you want." Damian threw up his hands, fearing his father wouldn't believe him. He pointed to the trunk of the Batmobile and said, "Didn't I capture the magician alive? He's an eyewitness and can testify for me." The magician, of course, was Malcolm Merlyn. This unfortunate fellow had his hands and feet severed by Damian and moved to the trunk of the Batmobile. He'd said he wanted to stuff something in the Batmobile, and Batman hadn't thought much of it at first. But then he saw this kid dragging a half-dead person with him, and Batman's face darkened instantly. If he hadn't recognized this person as the notorious Malcolm Merlyn, Batman would have wanted to beat this brat to death. As usual, extra updates will be added on weekends. Chapter 287, Ambush. Batman was completely helpless against this brat. He'd been through brutal assassin training since childhood, and his endurance surpassed even that of an adult. Even if you beat him up, he'd still hum a little tune and ask, "Hey, you were so gentle, haven't you eaten?" After all, he was his own son, so Batman couldn't really beat him to death. He could only stop when he had. After a couple of times, Damian had figured out his father's limits, constantly testing the limits and courting death. Seeing his father's expression of "I'll teach you a lesson when you get home," Damian Wayne sighed deeply. "Oh, my dear father, I almost got killed this time, and it's all your fault." Batman almost lost his grip on the steering wheel as the Batmobile lurched a few times before regaining its composure. "Asshole, don't think you can get away with today's punishment by putting the blame on me. Really, Dad, it's truly your fault. Think about it, why did the magician want to kill me? Wasn't it to sow discord between you and Mom? Of course, the real reason is because Grandpa wants you to inherit the League of Assassins." Damian crossed his legs, analyzing everything logically. But just then, a sharp whistling sound echoed from the sky. He looked towards the source of the sound and saw an RPG coming towards him. Batman's pupils shrank to the size of pinholes, and he frantically steered, trying to avoid the RPG. But it was too late. Boom! The RPG slammed directly into the Batmobile. The immense force and inertia of the high speed collided, launching the vehicle high into the air before slamming heavily onto the ground, tumbling dozens of meters. Fortunately, the Batmobile was constructed of a special alloy, making it incredibly strong. The massive impact only caused the front of the vehicle to collapse. "Damian, son, are you okay?" "Damian," Batman's voice was anxious. He unbuckled his seatbelt and reached out to gently pat the face of the child in the passenger seat. The child had a bruised head, blood streaming down his cheek. He instinctively slapped his father's hand away, swallowing the pain and saying, "I'm fine." "Who, attack Batman us?" Seeing that Damian was not seriously injured, breathed a sigh of relief, his eyes fixed on the three cars speeding towards him. "Stay inside your car, don't get out, you hear me?" Batman yelled at his son, then kicked open the deformed door and climbed out of the Batmobile, facing the three vans parked ahead. Damian, donning his Robin eye patch, imitated his father's kick. However, he was too weak to kick the passenger door, so he had to get out from the driver's side. A group of armed soldiers emerged from three vehicles across the way. The leader, dressed in a custom-made suit, appeared to be in his 50s or 60s, his hair aglow with white, giving him a certain aged look. "Damian Darhk, what do you want?" Batman's pupils shrank, surprised by the demon's presence. But when he thought about his son's attack, it made sense. 100 years ago, Damian Darhk battled the present-day Reshko for the title of Ninja Master. After his defeat, Damian Darhk disappeared for a century, presumed dead. But now, 100 years later, Damian Darhk reappeared, demonstrating his new powers. Magic. With a harmless smile on his face, as if greeting old friends, Damian Darhk addressed Batman and Robin. "Hi, Bruce Wayne and Damian Wayne, it's nice to meet you, but I want you to die." Before he could finish his words, the Hive mercenary raised his rifle and opened fire on Batman and Robin. Ta-da-da! A series of flames erupted. Batman, quick-witted, flung his cape to shield Robin. As he fled in the opposite direction, he flung several of the batarangs scattered around the Hive mercenaries, exploding instantly with the force of military grenades. Boom! 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 In an instant, many of the dozen-plus mercenaries were wounded. Amidst the blazing flames, Damian Darhk strolled forward, completely oblivious to the batarang explosions. "Dad, is this guy invulnerable?" "He's amazing." Robin quickly entered combat mode. Even with a minor injury, he could handle ordinary mercenaries with ease. In this situation, father and son worked together to charge into the mercenary group and soon defeated half of them. As for Damian Darhk, he moved to within a meter of the Batmobile and, with a slight raise of his hand, the trunk opened, revealing the half-dead figure of Malcolm Merlyn. "Seeing you like this, I'm truly heartbroken for you." Damian Darhk reached out and brushed against Malcolm Merlyn. His magic primarily absorbed the life energy of others, but in Malcolm's case, Damian Darhk simply drained Malcolm's life energy to repair his severed limbs. "Stop! You scoundrel!" Seeing someone tamper with his prize, Damian Wayne immediately abandoned his opponent and, with a feint, chased after Damian Darhk. However, Darhk didn't even glance at the boy, simply raising his hand to aim for Robin's neck. Over 10 meters apart, Robin felt a tight grip on his neck, choking him. Help, 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 help." Robin stretched out his hands to tear at his own neck, struggling desperately, but it felt as if he were being held in place by an invisible hand, unable to move. "Let him go." Batman, overcome with emotion by the sight of his son being controlled by magic, suddenly intensified his attack, snapping the spines of several mercenaries before charging forward recklessly. However, Damien Darhk casually extended his other hand. Batman, who had rushed forward, came to an abrupt, as if strangled by an invisible force, choking him, just like Robin. But Batman didn't panic. The opponent possessed magic, and he couldn't defeat him in a head-on fight. So, his right hand calmly reached for his left wrist and pressed Superman's pager. A rapid breath came from the trunk of the Batmobile, like a drowning man suddenly breathing fresh air. Malcolm Merlyn, you're such a fool. If I didn't think you were still useful, I'd kill you right now, Damien Darhk cursed, then smiled at Batman and waved to his men. Will die? Batman glanced at the screen of the military briefcase, taking a quick look. It was a highly invasive network program. While he didn't know what the other party was up to, anything connected to the League of Assassins was bound to be bad. Batman didn't answer Damien Darhk directly, instead trying to buy time, waiting for Superman to arrive. It's been almost a minute, why hasn't Superman arrived yet? Chapter 288, Superman arrives. Honey, you just got back, are you leaving again? Lois rubbed her sleepy eyes and tugged at Clark's pajamas, preventing him from getting out of bed. Baby, I'll be back soon. Bruce must have something urgent going on, otherwise he wouldn't have called me at this hour. Clark kissed Lois on the forehead, and she finally let go, sighing, if I ever found out he only wanted to have a drink with you tonight, I'd tear down Wayne Enterprises tomorrow. No, you wouldn't. My Lois isn't that violent. Clark got out of bed and instantly transformed from a pajama-clad Internet the Daily Planet to one of the greatest superheroes of our time, Superman. Come back soon, okay? They kissed, and Superman vanished from the room. The windows were wide open, letting in a cold draft that made Lois grit her teeth in hatred for a certain bat. She then ran barefoot, wrapped in her pajamas, to close the windows, Intercity Highway. Damien Darhk placed his hand on Batman's chest, using magic to drain his life force. Batman's cheeks paled as his life force drained madly, and he whimpered desperately, trying to break free from Damien Darhk's grip. Tell me where your security key is, Damien Darhk whispered in Batman's ear. No. You're expecting, Batman's voice seemed to cry from the depths of his soul. Though his flesh had been utterly withered, he withstood with incredible willpower. Malcolm Merlyn limped over. I think you should attack his child. Batman has been trained by the League of Assassins. Even if you torture him to death, he won't yield, I know. I'll just let him experience the agony of near death, and then I'll inflict that pain tenfold on his son. Damien Darhk released his grip. He couldn't actually kill Batman until he had the security key. Although the other Justice League leaders possessed their own code keys, Damien Darhk didn't believe he could threaten Wonder Woman, Superman, or Cyborg. As Damien Darhk's hand left Batman's chest, the flow of life energy instantly ceased. Batman felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. He looked utterly exhausted. Now it's the child's turn, Bruce Wayne. I admire your courage, but just because you can endure this torture doesn't mean your child can. Damien Darhk turned to his namesake and spat bitterly at him. You villain, son of a bitch, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. A string of obscenities emanated from Damian Wayne's lips as he struggled frantically, but he was firmly held in Damien Darhk's grip. Damien Darhk smiled. It seems your father never taught you how to control your temper. Anger and insults are useless. You can't anger me, let alone change anything. He finished his words when he gently slapped Robin's chest. Stop, Damien Darhk, Batman watched in fury. At that moment, a sonic boom echoed from the sky, and a figure descended from it. With a thud, the ground cracked, and Superman appeared. Batman gave him a look, his gaze fixed on Robin, suggesting that he save the child first. Superman, I didn't expect you to come to this. Darhk pushed Robin aside, reached out to Superman, and cast a spell. Superman paused, feeling a grip on his throat, choking him. However, Superman could adapt to the vacuum of space, let alone simply being unable to breathe. He held his breath, relying on his bio-force field to maintain circulation. Let them go, Superman declared coldly, stomping his right foot forward. The ground cracked and sank deeply. As Superman advanced against Damien Darhk's magic, Damien sensed a terrifying force counteracting his own. Unable to support himself with one hand, he let go of Batman and, with both hands, aimed at Superman, unleashing his full might. Father, Robin Damian Wayne, whose life force had been absorbed to a lesser extent, was not seriously injured. He ran over and helped the weakened Batman to his feet, his eyes filled with worry. As Damien Darhk unleashed his full magical might, Superman paused again. The ground cracked with a crashing sound, and a large area of earth beneath his feet collapsed. Physics versus magic, Superman had no significant advantage. His eyes suddenly turned blood red, and two blazing rays of light shot out, crashing down upon Damien's hands. If Damien's heat vision even slightly touched him, his hands would instantly vaporize. His expression changed instantly. He didn't dare to risk absorbing Superman's heat vision energy, instead using one hand to redirect it. Zizzle, zizzle. Damien Darhk gritted his teeth, exerting almost all his strength to redirect the heat vision. Two fiery red lasers streaked past him, burning deep gullies through the ground. The ground melted. Taking advantage of Damien Darhk's moment of distraction, Superman broke through his magical blockade, transformed into a shadow, and arrived in front of Damien Darhk, punching him in the chest. With a loud bang, Damien Darhk was sent flying backwards. His body had been transformed by magic, and Superman's punch had done little to harm him. He rolled on the ground several times, then climbed back up and reached out to grab Robin through the air. "Malcolm Merlyn, help me stop Superman," Damien Darhk yelled at Malcolm, who was playing dead in the Batmobile. Hearing this roar, Malcolm felt a pang of bitterness in his heart. "Stop Superman, are you kidding me? You, a magician, can't stop Superman, so how can I stop Superman? My life?" Malcolm Merlyn's face was bitter, his hands tightly gripping the bow and arrow, unable to shoot or not shoot. Superman lifted Batman with one hand and held Robin with the other. He looked at Malcolm Merlyn and said, "If I were you, I would never shoot that arrow." With that, Superman, Batman, and Robin took off. Watching Superman fly away, Malcolm Merlyn weakly dropped the bow and arrow in his hand. Damien Darhk ran over, his face gloomy. "Fail?" Malcolm asked. "No, not really. I got Batman's fingerprint. Let's go find that person. I should be able to forge a security protocol password key." Malcolm Merlyn's face changed when Damien Darhk mentioned that person. "I think it has bad intentions in wanting to cooperate with us." "Haha, so what if it has bad intentions? At least, our goals are the same as its," Damien Darhk said with a smile, then turned and walked towards his car. Chapter 289, Batman Takes the Blame. That night, Superman brought Batman and his son, who were unconscious, back to the Justice League's medical room. Batman had been drained of a significant amount of his life force by Damien Darhk, leaving him comatose. The medical room at the Justice League's Earth headquarters had also been modified with Kryptonian technology, and Superman placed Batman in a cylindrical, transparent medical pod. The pod was filled with a pale blue bioremedial fluid, which would help Batman quickly heal his wounds and replenish his lost life force. "Robin, you should go lie down in the pod for a while," Superman suggested. But the child remained strangely silent, sprawled across Batman's medbay, his gaze fixed on the slumbering Batman. "I'm fine. How long will it take for Dad to wake up?" "About noon tomorrow, okay. You keep an eye on Dad while I kill Damien Darhk and avenge him." With these words, Robin Damian Wayne turned and headed out. Superman, seeing the child's serious expression, felt a surge of anxiety. "Hey, kid, do you know where the other party is?" Damian Wayne was stunned for a moment, then looked confident. "Never mind him, their target is me anyway. As long as I show up outside, they will find me, but you will be captured alive, and your father will have to rescue you then." Superman walked up to Damian Wayne, looked at the little boy's depressed expression, half squatted down, patted his shoulder, and comforted him. "Damian, you are still young. When you become strong enough and have enough wisdom, you can become your father's helper." Now, before he finished speaking, Cyborg hurriedly opened the door of the medical room and said to Superman, "Emergency, Superman, come here, we are in trouble." "I'll be there," responded Superman. From the moment Damien Darhk appeared, he knew that things were far from over. For now, he comforted Robin Damian Wayne, saying, "Go back to your room and get some rest." "Gideon, Damian Wayne is forbidden from leaving the Justice League." "Hey, Superman, you can't do this," Damian Wayne protested, but he could do nothing to change Superman's decision. 5 hours later, the long night ended, and sunlight streamed into Leah's room. He opened his eyes, and the woman in his arms was still sleeping quietly. Last night was Leah's first night back in the DC universe, but he had a nightmare. In the dream, Earth was invaded by alien creatures, and billions of lives were wiped out. Something big is about to happen. God's dreams are prophecies. Leah sighed, rubbed his swollen head, and got out of bed to get dressed. At this time, Diana slowly woke up. The two kissed for a while, then prepared to go out for breakfast. Avengers, I'm sorry to interrupt your breakfast. Come to the command room now, it's an emergency. As they left the room, Cyborg's voice boomed over the hallway speakers. Leah glanced apologetically at Diana, who waved her hand nonchalantly. Go, your mission calls. Rushing to the command room, Cyborg's arms extended, his entire body connected to the main control computer. Beside him, Superman also exerted his super speed and super brain to the limit. His hands moved like a whirlwind, tapping the computer's control interface. His movements were so fast that after images appeared in the air. What are you two doing? Leah asked, bewildered. Cyborg didn't reply, and said in a deep voice, since last night. Batman has used his fingerprints and pupil recognition to reset the security protocol password. Now he is using the security protocol password to prepare to launch all of America's nuclear bombs. However, Batman is lying in the medical cabin in the medical room, which means Leah discovered Batman's whereabouts with his X-ray vision, so he guessed he was ambushed yesterday, and then his fingerprints and other things were stolen? Who did it? Damien Darhk. He is. Superman was about to explain, but Leah waved his hand to indicate that he knew who the other party was. I know who he is. When I went to the League of Assassins with Batman a year ago, the Ninja Master Batman warned to be careful of this person. He seems to know magic. Yes, I fought with him yesterday. His magic is very strong. Damien Darhk has been active in Star City before. Green Arrow has suffered a lot at his hands. I didn't expect that he would directly attack Batman this time. Superman's hands moved without any pause. Leah walked to the center of the command room. His eyes fell on the light screen. What kind of program is this? Even the two of you can't crack it together. The name of the program is unknown. It looks like a third-rate hacking program written by a lousy programmer, but the special variable matrix algorithm in the kernel is something I have never heard of, and the number is extremely large. Although I have preliminarily cracked its operating rules, I can't write a response program while preventing him from activating the nuclear bomb. Cyborg's face looked a little ugly. After explaining for a while, he sighed. If there were two of you, I wouldn't ask. According to human technology, can we do this? Leah asked the crux of the problem. This hacking program isn't beyond human. If it were the data devil, we'd only need 2 hours to write such a program. A momentary silence fell in the command room, and Superman suddenly exclaimed, oh no. Batman has activated 2 nuclear silos. In 30 seconds, the nuclear bombs will be launched at Metropolis. Leah, come and cover for me for a while I stop the bombs. Superman said he was more suited to stopping the bombs than to outwitting the hackers. Batman's in the medical bay, and I don't understand this stuff. Leah's face darkened. Before he could finish, Superman pointed to a pile of books on the wall, such as Hacking Attack and Defense Theory and Hacking Technology. From zero to mastery, I'll give you 10 seconds to learn it all, Superman shouted. Leah's face suddenly darkened. He paused for half a second and asked, if there is a super hacker who can perform millions of calculations per second, can he help us solve the problem? Cyborg said without hesitation, yes, but unless the Flash secretly learns Felicity's hacking skills, there is no one else on Earth who can do this except me. In fact, there is, Leah said firmly. Chapter 290, Speed Force Resonance. Hearing this, Cyborg was stunned for a moment. He used 1/10 of his computing power to screen every possible person on Earth, but the conclusion was still no. Impossible, no such person exists. Cyborg shook his head and said firmly, Avengers, who exactly are you talking about? Leah didn't directly answer Cyborg's question. He opened the communication channel and connected with the Flash in Central City. Flash, I'm giving you a chance to atone for your sin. Bring Felicity here within 30 seconds, or I'll tie you up with a lasso of truth and hang you outside the Justice League for 3 days and 3 nights. Since the Flash's previous time travel had caused Leah to accidentally cross into the Marvel Universe, this account hadn't been settled yet. Now was a perfect opportunity for him to make amends. On the other end of the communicator, the Flash's voice seemed dazed. Avengers, what are you bringing Felicity to headquarters for? What's going on? 29, 28, 27. Leah's voice counted down the final number. A sudden, ominous feeling welled up in the Flash, who quickly dropped what he was doing and, transforming into a bolt of lightning, rushed out of Central City. Just as Leah's countdown was about to end, a flash of lightning appeared in the command room at Justice League headquarters. Omega. Barry, what are you doing? Where are we? Felicity was dressed in a formal gown, clearly at a banquet. She held a goblet, but the red wine had long since been spilled. Leah pushed Felicity in front of the computer and explained briefly, "There's a virus super we need your help cracking, but your mortal speed of thought is definitely not enough. Flash, resonate the speed force into Felicity. That way, she'll quickly achieve computing speeds comparable to cyborgs." Wait? What do you mean by resonate the speed force into Felicity? The Flash was completely bewildered. Although he had mastered many speed force techniques, he had never heard of resonant speed. Indeed, the Flash had only grasped this ability when dealing with a thinker. The principle is that both the Flash and the recipient vibrate at the same frequency. Once both reach the same frequency, the speed force field allows them to move and think at high speeds. This use of the speed force is similar to teleporting through walls, but the application is much more sophisticated. Barry, place your hand on Felicity's body now and align your vibrations. Every cell, every molecule, vibrates at the same frequency. Imagine that you and Felicity are one, the currents of the speed force surging through your cells. Following Leah's instructions, the Flash placed his hand behind Felicity's back and vibrated. Once the vibrations were aligned, a flash of speed force lightning flashed through, and Felicity moved and spoke at the same breakneck. "Oh my god, this feels amazing." These words were spoken in speed a mere 0.01 seconds. Normal eardrums couldn't even register the sound, so only the superhumans present could hear it clearly. Cyborg was stunned. "Avenger, I truly admire your thinking. Now, Super Felicity, let's stop this virus program together. I don't know what's going on, but I like a challenge." Felicity took 0.02 seconds to get a rough idea of the situation, then spent nearly another second studying the analytical data Cyborg had shared with her. Finally, Felicity placed her hands on the console and danced rapidly. The battle between hackers erupted instantly. It was a war without the smoke of gunpowder, yet its excitement rivaled any of history's greatest battles. Hive Base. In a room filled with supercomputer mainframes, Damien Darhk and Malcolm Merlin stood behind a half-human, half-cyborg monster. The monster violently inserted its hands into the mainframe, and huge amounts of data scrolled frantically on the electronic screen. No. How could they have the energy to write a cracking program? The half-human, half-cyborg monster uttered a hoarse voice, like a shabby stereo playing a stage play. Damien Darhk sneered, "Your master said Cyborg's computing power couldn't crack his program." "Of course. To avoid revealing more, my master has calculated precisely. Unless there are two cyborgs on this planet, he can't handle such a program." As host after host was compromised, the monster's head whirred mechanically, its frequency increasing, until it abruptly stopped, as if it had frozen. "What's the situation now?" Malcolm Merlin asked, puzzled. He had lost a considerable amount of life energy, his temples now gray. "I don't know," Damien Darhk shook his head. "Is that the end? Your master promised me the conditions, why hasn't he fulfilled them yet?" Damien Darhk narrowed his eyes, gazing unkindly at the half-human, half-ghost monster before him. As if seeing through Damien Darhk's thoughts, the mechanical monster's eyes gleamed with a ferocious glint, a gaze like the gaze of death, as it suddenly thrust itself in close to Damien Darhk's face. "Over? No, the game has just begun. Do you know why you failed? It's because you don't understand the enemy well enough. The Justice League isn't as simple as you think. Especially the Avengers. They're not like the benevolent Superman or the weak Batman. If they so choose, they can end your lives in an instant. Fragile, insignificant lives," the mechanical monster roared, while Damien Darhk and Malcolm Merlin's eyes shifted. They exchanged a glance, then asked, "Your master is willing to give us this world. What does he want? He must have a purpose, right? Originally, my master also wanted this planet as a collection, but, now, he desires a body with infinite possibilities." As the mechanical monster spoke, his eyes were fixed on the electronic screen, showing Superman and Leah working together to stop a nuclear bomb. They used Batman's security protocol to activate 2 nuclear silos and successfully launched nuclear bombs. However, before a large-scale nuclear launch was possible, they were stopped. Leah and Superman each launched nuclear bombs into space. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291, Potential Threat. As Leah and Superman pushed the nuclear bomb into space, Felicity's hacker war was drawing to a close. The control room screen displayed the locations of nuclear silos scattered across the region. Some locations glowed red, indicating they were being invaded by malicious programs. Others glowed green, indicating that Felicity and Cyborg had successfully defended them together. Gradually, the green dots on the screen grew larger and larger, like sparks igniting a prairie fire, gradually covering the entire screen. 13 more silos. Keep going, Cyborg said encouragingly, glancing at Felicity and the Flash beside them. Felicity's hands trembled rapidly, leaving a shadow in front of her. Behind her, the Flash looked exhausted. Due to the Speed Force resonance, the energy consumption was several times greater than usual seconds. Felicity spoke rapidly. 10 seconds in the real world might translate to dozens of minutes, even hours, in Flash time. The Flash maintained this, continuously channeling his Speed Force. Even the Flash, renowned for his endurance, found it overwhelming. No problem, just 10 seconds, Barry forced a smile at Felicity. 8. Felicity cheered as the last nuclear silos intrusion program was eliminated. The Flash released his grip on Felicity, stepped back a few steps, and sank into a chair. The robotic machine served him and Felicity some high-calorie food. Felicity, experiencing her first time in Flash mode, felt dizzy and nauseous immediately afterward. The address the system tracked is fake. At that moment, Leah and Superman appeared at the doorway simultaneously. Cyborg traced the source of the intrusion program and discovered the address of the Hive al-Qaeda organization in Afghanistan. When Leah and the others flew over, they found nothing. It's certain that Detachman was involved in this intrusion. The nuclear silos are isolated from the outside world. It must have been something Detachman left behind when he invaded last year. With Damien Darhk's abilities, it's impossible for him to have invaded a silo, Cyborg shared his analysis. Everyone present, except Felicity, knew what happened last year. Leah shook his head. It's definitely not Detachman, because he's dead. But he mentioned that Detachman was just an avatar, and the real one's name, Brainiac? Superman continued Leah's words. Brainiac? Cyborg was silent for a moment. Based on the intelligence they had, Brainiac was an artificial intelligence with a level 12 intelligence. His terrifying computing and strategic abilities were evident in Detachman. If Leah hadn't judged Detachman and learned his fate from another perspective, Detachman would have gotten his kryptonite. With Doomsday released by the Data Demon, victory in the ensuing battles might not be so easy. Felicity listened to talking about Brainiac and touched the Flash's arm. Barry, what are they talking about? Well, all you need to know is, the world is in trouble again. The Flash's words revealed the truth, and Felicity's mouth twitched. Another trouble? Superpowered terrorists or an alien invasion? Or, maybe a little of both. Flash, send Felicity back and call an emergency meeting. Leah was certain Brainiac was behind this. They had to devise a response before he made any major moves. Okay, Avengers, the Flash responded and escorted Felicity away from the Justice League headquarters. Meanwhile, Batman awoke from the medical bay. After Robin explained the situation to him, his expression darkened. In fact, Brainiac's arrival had been foreseen since the Data Demon appeared. The biggest question now is whether Brainiac has actually arrived on Earth. At the meeting, Superman had confirmed his initial premonition. He'd sensed something amiss since the black hole appeared in Central City, and now all signs pointed to Brainiac's presence. Lear shook his head. A villain like him should make a grand entrance. Detachman's defeat will surely make him more cautious. His search for allies suggests he's testing our strength, perhaps infiltrating some forces first, waiting for the right moment to strike the final blow. Then what if we seek them out first? Cyborg had fully upgraded the Justice League's satellites. Especially with the Watchtower online, the entire Earth would be under the Justice League's surveillance. Lear shook his head. Don't forget, Brainiac possesses powerful technology. Without him, it's difficult to locate him, and our technology can't penetrate magical barriers. I think that's why he's looking for Damien Darhk, magic. In this world where technology and magic coexist, the two restrain each other, yet they also complement each other. As the saying goes, when scientists can do magic, nothing can stop them. So what should we do? Just wait. Supergirl Kara slammed the table. Brainiac was one of the culprits who destroyed Krypton, and now he's plotting against Earth. Kara couldn't wait to confront Brainiac. Lee, your thought for a moment. We can start with Malcolm Merlyn. Wonder Woman, Fiora, you go to Star City to assist Green Arrow. Target Damien Darhk, but also keep an eye on Thea. She's Malcolm Merlyn's daughter. If she shows up, capture her immediately. We can get some useful information out of Malcolm. What about the others? Batman asked. Only Robin wasn't at the meeting. If you were, he'd definitely make a fuss and join them in going to Star City to seek revenge on Damien Darhk. Cyborg will monitor the entire satellite network. Everyone else will be on standby. There's no need to be on such high alert. If we really have to mobilize all our forces to find him, Brainiac will surely be hiding far away. He'll appear and deliver the fatal blow the moment we let our guard down, Leah said. Superman nodded. I agree with the Avengers proposal. Second. Chapter 292, Arthur Curry. Under the Western Ocean floor. After the sinking of the Atlantean civilization, it split into 7 kingdoms. Over the course of countless years, one of the 7 kingdoms vanished, another was lost, and yet another had its entire inhabitants transformed into sea monsters. However, the remaining 4 flourished and prospered. Atlantis, the leader of the 7, reached its peak of civilization. Standing in the depths of the ocean, overlooking the seabed, a vast basin hosts a dazzling array of tall buildings, shrouded in a curtain of light emitting a faint blue glow. Bounded by the basin, a massive, 1,000-meter-high wall rises. Atop the wall, every 300 meters, a 20-meter-long, silver-white magic cannon is mounted. Even from a great distance, the terrifying power of these cannons can be felt. South of the Atlantean capital, a bridge spans 2 underwater mountain ranges. Countless shuttles of various shapes and shapes, as well as deep-sea civilians and soldiers riding sharks and sea dragon horses, can be seen. Countless pedestrians formed 6 lines above the underwater bridge, flowing in and out in an orderly manner through the tall gates of Atlantis ahead. Just then, a fleet of submarines appeared in the distance, attracting the attention of everyone on the underwater bridge loaded at creatures as products of terrestrial civilization. Stranger, this is Atlantean territory ahead. Please leave immediately, or we will, the captain of the guards warned the invaders in Atlantean. They didn't want to start a war, but they wouldn't allow outsiders to approach Atlantis without permission. But before he could finish, the submarine unleashed a torpedo at the civilians on the underwater bridge. Whoosh! 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 2 torpedoes were fired from the front of each submarine. Before the guards could react, they crashed into the underwater bridge like meteorites. Boom! 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 Explosions echoed one after another, as countless torpedoes blasted across the bridge. The pilots of the deep-sea shuttles were lucky, merely blown away by the torpedo blasts from Earth. Civilians panicked. Guards mounted their mounts. Atlantean soldiers, riding sharks, drew their weapons and launched a counterattack against the submarines. On the walls of Atlantis, dozens of magical cannons swung their barrels toward the invading submarines, gathering a terrifying wave of energy. The Guardian cannon is about to fire. Everyone disperse, the captain of the guards roared, his voice traveling faster through the sea than through air. Hearing his command, all the guards instantly transformed into streams of light and scattered. Boom! 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 Suddenly, the temperature of the entire sea rose dramatically. Dozens of magical cannons simultaneously fired, unleashing a powerful wave of energy that created a vacuum in the path of the projectiles. Rumble! Suddenly, 6 or 7 submarines were engulfed by the terrifying magical cannons, leaving them no chance to turn around and escape. Have been turbulent lately, and many fishermen are afraid to go out to sea. Of course, there are some fishermen with unconventional minds who simply enjoy the challenge of the sea. The stronger the wind and waves, the more they want to go out to fish. Many people stood outside the coast bar, ignoring the pouring rain, looking out at a small fishing boat bobbing in the distant sea. I bet this fishing boat will capsize. That fisherman will catch a big one. Or maybe it's a mermaid, fair-skinned, beautiful, and with big legs. I can take her home. Hey, the fishermen were all big-hearted, drinking and joking. The atmosphere was quite harmonious. Behind them, a shirtless man, his muscular body covered in black tattoos, emerged. He held a bottle of whiskey in his hand, took a long swig, and looked out at the fishing boat. Just then, a huge wave hit, and the small fishing boat capsized in the water like a skinny man knocked down by a strong man's punch. The boat's capsized. Look at that stupid fisherman struggling in the water. Ha ha ha, the waves are so rough, he probably can't swim out. Call 911. The police should be able to get to the body in time. Don't say that. Have you forgotten what's the name of this superhero? He saves people who fall into the water. Aquaman. His name is Aquaman. Look, there's a person in the water. A blurry figure swam at breakneck speed in the turbulent water, like a torpedo. A human could never swim that fast, and in the turbulent water, a person's speed might even be slower than the backwash of the water. As the fisherman watched, the blurry figure rushed to the drowning man and dragged him to land. About 10 meters from the shore, the sea suddenly exploded, and a burly man, carrying a Chinese man on his shoulders, leaped out and landed on the ground with a loud thud. He carried the Chinese man to the coast bar and dropped him on a table. While compressing his chest and considering whether to give him artificial respiration, the man suddenly spit out a large mouthful of seawater and opened his eyes. You saved my life. Who are you? You weren't drowning, were you? Or, you are fully capable of swimming back on your own. The Chinese man jumped down from the bar seat and said to the bar owner, 2 glasses of the strongest liquor, please. Then he sat down opposite the man and said with a smile, although I said I won't drown, you may not believe it, but I really can't swim. So, are you in cahoots with that guy? The one in the back suit? What do you want from me? The man narrowed his eyes slightly, with a hint of confusion on his face. Leo took the 2 glasses of wine from the bar owner and placed one in front of the man. I heard that there is a man in Shreveport who can drink a lot, so I came here to challenge him. Do you dare to accept the challenge? Before the man even spoke, the surrounding fishermen began to get restless. Fuck. Someone dares to challenge our drinking. Arthur, drink him down. Arthur Curry's lips curled up in a mocking smile. Do I can buy this bar anyway? As soon as Leah finished speaking, Arthur Curry picked up the glass in front of him and downed the liquor in it as if it were plain water, then slammed it down on the table. More, P.S. The Aquaman arc is based on the film plot, but it won't be copied exactly, especially when it comes to the Queen's plot. This book follows the comics. If you want to see the exact same plot as the movie, I recommend rewatching the movie. Chapter 293, Queen of Atlantis. When the submarines attacked the capital of Atlantis, the Queen of Atlantis immediately convened the council. Immediately implement emergency plans, and first care for our wounded. Queen Atlantis sat upright on her throne, holding a golden trident. Her delicate features radiated an unmistakable air of nobility. The council hall was vast, with 4 massive, 20-meter-long coral-like pillars in its center. Standing on the left was an envoy from the kingdom of Zebel. The Zebel envoy stepped forward and bowed to the Atlantean queen on the throne. Your Majesty, there are also citizens of our Zebel injured this time. You have witnessed the cruelty of the Earthlings. Who would attack innocent people? I agree with Sir Leslie. They are declaring war on us. The envoys from other kingdoms erupted in discussion. In today's underwater world, besides the Lost Nation, and the Trench Nation, exchanges between the other 4 nations are becoming increasingly frequent. Millions of people from other nations come and go in the capital of Atlantis every day. Therefore, in the recent attack, not only did Atlantis suffer casualties, but the people of the other 3 nations were also affected. Yes, Your Majesty, the Earthlings have harmed the interests of all our nations. We must demand a reasonable explanation from them. Mother, the Earthlings' attack on us proves they want to destroy us. My father distrusted Earthlings, and now their hideous nature has been proven. Therefore, I, Prince of Atlantis, hereby propose to break with established conventions and launch the Atlantean war plan. Is of the purest royal blood. His mother is the current Queen of Atlantis, and his father is the Prince of the Kingdom of Zebel. Because Atlanta had conceived a child with a human, Orm's father had instilled in him the lowliness and sinfulness of Earthlings since childhood. He then set out to find the legendary trident of Poseidon, hoping to lead the power of the 7 seas and conquer the land. However, Orm's father never appeared again. However, his hatred and resentment for Earthlings took root in the young Orm's heart. The envoys from the kingdom of Zebel unconditionally agreed to Prince Orm's proposal, while the envoys from the Fisherman Kingdom and the Saltwater Kingdom hesitated. Declaring war is not a matter to be taken lightly. Enough. The Queen of Atlantis rose from her throne, clenched her golden trident, and slammed it down on the ground. Gloomy, but he knelt on one knee and listened to the Queen's words. We can't jump to conclusions about this matter so hastily. Besides, no one on Earth knows of the existence of the Atlantean civilization. Hearing the Queen's words, Prince Orm's face lit up with sarcasm. He wanted to demand, "You, the Queen of Atlantis, have fathered an illegitimate child with someone from Earth," but looking up at the golden trident in Atlantis' hand, Orm bit back his words. With a golden trident in hand, no one in Atlantis could rival the Queen. Perhaps Atlantis has been isolated for too long. A bridge is needed, a bridge connecting the two worlds. Before the Queen's words had even finished, the counselors from the four nations began to stir. "But your Majesty, our traditions forbid this. I have made up my mind. Atlantis has been separated from the surface world for too long. It's time to build a bridge of peace. I will personally oversee this matter. You may withdraw. Mira, follow me. I have something to tell you." The Queen waved a golden trident, and the counselors from the four nations retreated. Even Prince Orm's face grimaced. After a bow, he exited the council hall. He knew full well his mother's plan, to reclaim that bastard brother. The thought of a brother with such tainted blood filled Orm's body with a sickening pain. "I don't understand why Mother still clings to that bastard. Are blood and honor so worthless in her eyes?" Coastal Bar. Despite the dreadful weather, nearly everyone in Sheenport knew about the two men competing in a drinking contest at the bar. Of course, that alone wouldn't cause much of a stir. But these two had nearly drained the entire bar's cellar. If they did, the fishermen of Sheenport would likely be left without a drink for the next 4 or 5 days. For those constantly adrift on the sea, this would be sheer torture. "Enough, you two. Get out of here. It's such a waste to treat such fine wine like water." A portly, nearly 2 meters tall, approached Li Yan, flanked by several of his minions. After this guy came in, he was told by the bartender that there was no drink, so he came up very unhappy and wanted to teach Li Yan and Arthur a lesson. It has to be said that the people of Sheenport are tough. Bar fights happen almost every day, and drinkers also like to watch fights. The so-called punching to the flesh is a man's romance. However, the two people who clashed this time were very different in size and almost unattractive. "What about you, two stupid donkeys?" Seeing that Li Yan and Arthur were still fighting for wine, the big fat man slapped the table, making the table creak. Arthur Curry put down his glass, pointed at Li Yan, and said, "He bought me a drink. If you don't like it, you can beat him up." "That's right, come on, beat me up." Li Yan stood up. His height of 1.8 meters was really weak in front of this group of strong bear-like fishermen. "Chris, throw him out," someone yelled from the side. The fat man named Chris put his hand on Li Yan's shoulder and lifted it hard. Everyone expected Li Yan to be thrown out, but Li Yan seemed rooted to the ground, unmoving. The portly man's face froze, then he reached out with both hands and gave a powerful push. Instead of pushing Li Yan, the recoil sent him sprawling. "Ha ha ha!" The bar erupted in laughter, a cheerful atmosphere filling the air. Even Arthur Curry couldn't help but glance at Li Yan. "Everything you break today is mine." Roar, fight. Let's fight. The fire within everyone was ignited, and the drunken crowd began to fight without distinguishing friend from foe. The bar owner had initially thought there would be no fighting today, but it turned out to be a major one. Looking at the scuffles among the drinkers, he calmly pulled out his computer and said, "A table is $80, a chair is $60. Inside the hall, Arthur Curry was also surrounded by 4 or 5 burly men. He shook his drunken head, roared, and with a few punches and kicks, he knocked the men around him to the ground. "My writing has been a bit sluggish lately, and I don't have any drafts saved, which has led to some late updates. I've also been struggling with the plot for a long time, and finally decided not to stick to the movie. After all, the movie has some loopholes. Of course, this doesn't prevent Aquaman from being a very good movie." Chapter 294, Trench Monster. Just as the patrons of the Coast Bar were engaged in a fierce brawl, a vast, dark mass of shadows gathered beneath the surface of the sea. Under the cover of moonlight, several figures dressed in black, resembling diving suits, leaped onto the shore. "That bastard is just ahead. Release the sonar and summon the trench monster." Atlantean, the leader's armor had been marked with a new line, seemingly the leader of this operation. They quietly infiltrated the vicinity of the Coast Bar and peered through the windows. Arm in arm, 2 men kicked a group of patrons to the ground. The bar was utterly smashed to pieces. The owner, with a nonchalant expression, pulled out his computer and demanded compensation from Li Yan. Summon the trench monster. With the leader's command, everyone flipped a switch on the right arm of their armor. A sound inaudible to human ears echoed, and the already restless mass of shadows on the sea surface now boiled over like boiling water poured into a cauldron of oil. Countless disgusting creatures, resembling humanoid lizards, leaped from the water, their claws and fangs bared, charging towards the coastal bar. The moment the men unleashed their sonar, Leah and Arthur Curry inside simultaneously heard the sound. At that moment, Leah swiftly swung his hands, and magical shields, condensed from divine power, appeared, blocking the incoming energy bombs. The bar owner's usually calm face finally broke into horror upon seeing the armored figure outside and the swarm of trench monsters. Terrified, he hid behind the bar, stammering, This will cost extra, no problem, just talk to Arthur Curry. He's the one for these things." Li Yang maintained a magical shield around him. With one hand, he carved a magic circle, while with the other, he drew a circle. He welded a portal in midair and waved at the patron stumbling on the ground. The portal, emitting silver sparks, teleported the group a kilometer away. Arthur Curry had taken over his father's job as the keeper of Sheen Harbor Lighthouse. After hearing what the owner of the Coast Bar said, Arthur gave him a middle finger and then looked at Li Yang. "So you're a magician, to be more precise, you should call me a battle mage." The ordinary people present had been teleported away. Li Yang released the magic shield surrounding him and rushed forward first, facing a swarm of sea monsters. The sea monsters were the Trench Kingdom, one of the 7 kingdoms that split Atlantis. However, the people of the Trench Kingdom had all been transformed into emaciated creatures with sharp teeth and claws, and heads like lizards. Li Yang flipped his hands and used his divine power to transform a magic whip. The 10-meter-long whip swept across, slicing the sea monsters in half. Arthur was much more passive, fighting with his hands and feet, facing the attacks and bites of dozens of sea monsters. Although Arthur Curry was half human, half Atlantean royal blood, he was considered a demigod. Ordinary swords and guns could not hurt him at all. However, the sea monsters were also descendants of Atlantis, mutated into deformed forms. Their sharp fangs and claws bit Arthur Curry, causing him to feel a burning pain. "Damn, there are too many of them. Brother, can you make me a weapon?" Arthur Curry watched Li Yang wield his magic whip and suddenly felt that his fists were too weak. Li Yang himself lost count of how many sea monsters he had killed. He noticed that Arthur's skin was torn by several sea monsters, bleeding profusely, and he looked rather disheveled. He asked, "Where's your pendant?" "What pendant?" "The silver-white one your mother left you." "My mother abandoned me when I was very young," Arthur Curry said, picking up pieces of the bar counter and throwing them at the sea monsters. The black armored soldiers, operating strange sonar, raised their energy guns and fired at Arthur Curry. A flash of yellow lightning streaked across the sea, from far to near. Before the barrage of energy bombs could even land, Arthur Curry had already vanished from the spot. 4 blazing beams of light descended from the sky, incinerating countless sea monsters in their path. Shazam! Lightning erupted from the sky, and a middle-aged man emerged from the light, electrocuting fish, reducing a vast swarm of sea monsters to charcoal. "Who are you?" Arthur Curry asked, looking in astonishment at the figure in red tights before him. "We are the Justice League." Superman and Kara descended, one blasting cold air while the other used heat vision to sweep across the swarm of sea monsters, quickly dispatching them. Li Yang swung his magic whip with a single hand, like a dragon emerging from the sea, blasting the armor of several black soldiers. An ordinary Atlantean, once out of the water without adequate protection, would suffocate and die quickly. The black armored soldier before him suffocated as the moisture within his armor drained. "I've killed all the soldiers, and the sonar's gone silent, so why are these monsters still pouring out of the water, you ask me? How should I know?" Arthur grimaced. At that moment, a melodious song drifted from the depths of the ocean. The voice was ethereal, like a gentle breeze echoing across the surface, capable of soothing any negativity. While this song was a delight it was an immense pain for the sea monsters. The sea monsters, once swarming toward the shore, now leaped into the sea like dumplings, soon disappearing from the surface. "What happened?" Elevator lifted a woman clad in emerald-scale armor. The woman had long crimson hair, a face as charming as delicately carved jade, and the tight-fitting scale armor perfectly displayed a beautiful figure. Arthur was completely stunned. Shazam stepped forward and touched his arm. "Brother, this woman looks like she's here for you. What are you standing there for? Hurry up." He then gave Arthur a shove. "Who are you? Did you save us just now?" Arthur Curry asked stiffly, taking Shazam's push and taking a few steps forward. Chapter 295, Mila. Seeing Arthur's expressionless expression, the woman suddenly smiled and spoke in a language everyone could understand. My name is Mira, captain of your mother's royal guard, and princess of the kingdom of Zebel. Mira possessed the purest aristocratic blood. Not only could she move about on land, she could even speak human language. Atlantis was the ruler of the seven seas. Other kingdoms were subject to Atlantis's rule, a relationship somewhat similar to the feudal nobility of the Central Kingdom. These nobles could own their own territories and kingdoms, but they were bound by loyalty to the Central Kingdom. Atlantis ruled by force, and the position of captain of the Queen's royal guard had to be the most powerful young nobleman. Therefore, Mira spoke of her identity with immense honor. Hearing about his mother, Arthur Curry frowned. My mother abandoned me when I was a baby. My father stood on the rocks by the sea every day, waiting for her return, but he waited for over 20 years, until his death. Without a mother, Arthur's voice trembled, and Lee and Kara stared at each other. He didn't know what to do. Unlike some of the more heartwarming versions, Cyborg's research revealed that Tom Curry, Arthur's father in this universe, had passed away 10 years earlier. Hearing the news about his mother, Arthur Curry, now over 30, was overwhelmed with emotion. Arthur Curry, the matter here is much more complicated than you can imagine. Your mother came to the human world to escape her. Mira's words were like a bolt from the blue. Arthur Curry shook his head in disbelief, but my father never told me this. He told me that my mother had marriage, met and fell in love with your father, but at that time the royal family had already betrothed her to the prince of the country of Zabel to leave us. Your father doesn't want you to be involved too much, but now, Arthur Curry, you must take your responsibilities. Your mother needs you. She thinks you are our future. Mira stepped out of the waves and walked in front of Li Ye and others. I know you. You are the superpower organization on Earth, the Justice League. Wow, how did you know us? Shazam looked at the beautiful young lady curiously. Then, young lady, do you know me? Mira's expression was stern, like an ice sculpture that hadn't melted for 1,000 years. I don't know them. Actually, our intelligence mainly comes from fishermen and sea creatures. I only recognize these two symbols. She pointed to the A on Lee's armor and the S on Superman and Kara's chests. As for Shazam and the Flash, she said she had never heard of them. It seems we really need to get to know each other. Hello, Ms. Mara, you can call me an Avenger. Lee extended her hand, wanting to shake her hand. Mara was stunned. Why are you extending your hand? Handshakes. It's a way of expressing friendship between people. Arthur Curry, deciding to bridge the gap between the two cultures, explained. Demigod bloodline, possesses powerful water control magic. Additional note, Atlanteans' combat effectiveness increases by 30% underwater, and decreases by 30% on land. This person from the underwater world was both unexpected and reasonable. After shaking hands with the other members and getting to know each other, Kamala briefly explained the situation to everyone. First, a submarine attacked the Atlantis undersea bridge. And then Prince Orm took advantage of the situation to incite public opinion and propose war. Impossible. None of our countries would attack Atlantis civilization. Almost everyone even considers Atlantis a legend. The Flash was incredulous. While the Justice League couldn't interfere with the decisions of the American High Command, they had the authority to investigate certain matters involving war as UN security advisors. Yes, Madam Mara, we wouldn't randomly provoke a civilization unless someone deliberately did it, Leah said. Both Mara and the Queen of Atlantis suspected Orm's actions, but Mara, as a legitimate aristocrat, would never accuse a royal prince without evidence. She smiled. The Queen agrees, too. That's why she invited Arthur back to Atlantis. If possible, she hopes he can become king of Atlantis, leading the people of Atlantis in building a bridge of peace with the civilizations of Earth. Hey, brother, I envy you for having a throne. Shazam beamed with excitement. Growing up in the slums, he loved fairy tales like the Ugly Duckling becoming a swan and Cinderella becoming a princess. However, upon hearing this, Arthur stepped back and shook his head. No, Mara, I'm just the son of a lighthouse keeper. I'm not a noble, nor a king. Mara disagreed. Arthur, the Queen needs a lighthouse, and the people of Atlantis need one to guide them. Superman and Kara had a unique understanding of this. Brother, Kara and I are the last survivors of our planet. If I have a chance to save my world, I'll do anything. You at least still have a mother and your own people. Yes, the Queen wishes to see you. Mara's final words broke through Arthur Curry's last psychological defenses. Arthur breathed a long sigh and nodded. Yes, your decision is wise. And everyone in the Justice League, the Queen also wishes to speak with you. A peaceful meeting, Mara offered sincerely. This put the Flash and Shazam in a difficult position. By the way, do you have a submarine? We can't breathe underwater like you Atlanteans. The Flash and Shazam couldn't breathe underwater. Shazam wouldn't die without breathing, thanks to his magic, but he would be in great pain. As for the Flash, drowning would be a real death sentence. Leanne, Superman Kara, and the others said, don't worry about us. We can adapt to the oxygen-free environment. Chapter 296, Black Manta. The capital of Atlantis. A black, single-soldier deep-sea vessel passed through the entrance gate and headed for the palace of Prince Orm of Atlantis. Inside the palace, Prince Orm spotted a soldier clad in pitch-black armor. But he knew the wearer wasn't an Atlantean, but a terrestrial deep-sea pirate. After dismissing his attendants, Prince Orm approached the man and asked, Black Manta, is everything settled? No, your half-brother is still. He's currently traveling to Atlantis with Mara, accompanied by 3 members of the Justice League on Earth, Black Manta replied gravely. Upon hearing this answer, Prince Orm's face darkened instantly. He angrily demanded, why can't we even take out a single bastard? Tens of thousands of trench monsters, plus a pair of well-equipped and well-trained soldiers. No offense, Your Highness, but your soldiers' equipment is far from sophisticated. It's even rubbish. Their armor stands no chance against the Justice League, Black Manta retorted bluntly. A murderous glint flashed in Prince Orm's eyes. He coldly retorted, this is the best equipment I can muster. I'm only a prince, not a king. Wait, that gear you're wearing, have you modified it? The deep-sea bandit on the surface was originally wearing enhanced armor provided by Prince Orm. This armor was an old style discarded by the royal guards, and it offered very little improvement to his own strength. Therefore, Prince Orm could easily procure some and equip a private army. However, when he examined Black Manta's equipment again today, he noticed a significant difference. The helmet, once small, now resembled a giant baby's head, shrouded in 2 blood-red glass covers. Black Manta made no secret of the situation. I met a powerful figure on the surface. Guards, I'm confident I can hold my own. Sounds like you've met a philanthropist, Orm sneered, flexing his wrist, his eyes eager to try out Black Manta's modified armor. Just then, the hall door opened, and a female soldier in white scale armor entered, announcing, Your Highness, Orm, the Queen has arrived. Hearing this, Orm looked startled and glanced at Black Manta. Black Manta understood and silently stepped aside. The door swung open, and the Queen of Atlantis, golden trident in hand, entered the hall with the lieutenant captain of the royal guards. Seeing Orm, Atlanta sighed, I think you already know that you have a brother. No, he's not my brother, mother. You should know that the Atlanteans pay attention to bloodline. I will not recognize such a brother, and the Atlanteans will not recognize him. Orm became emotional when Arthur Curry was mentioned. Atlanta tried to persuade her son, your brother can build a bridge between Atlantis and the Earth civilization, so you want to let your illegitimate son inherit the throne. Orm's smile was very cold. Even, noble royal blood flows in my body. It was you who betrayed my father, and now you are betraying Atlantis. Betrayal. You dare to mention betrayal to me? The Queen's voice seemed to be suppressing her inner anger. Those submarines that invaded Atlantis were arranged by you, right? Orm, in order to realize your ambition, you killed innocent civilians. If you were not my son, you would have received the punishment you deserved. She glanced at Black Manta, huddled in a corner. This is the culprit who invaded Atlantis, Orm. Capture him, and I'll forgive your foolish actions. After all, he was her son, and Atlanta couldn't bear to punish him. She also believed Orm was simply confused for a moment. Orm glanced at Black Manta in the corner. He extended his right hand, and a pendant gleaming with silvery white light appeared in his hand. Capture this man, Orm, and I will forgive your sins. The Queen's voice rang out again. As you command, Mother. Orm gripped the pendant tightly, his eyes stern as he swam toward Black Manta. Black Manta tensed for a moment, but he caught the look and seemed to understand. The next second, Black Manta suddenly took flight, its engines roaring loudly, and it charged towards Atlanta like lightning. Looking for death, before the Queen could move, her lieutenant captain of the royal guards was already prepared for the fight. Bang! Black Manta swung his right slingshot, colliding with the captain's silver halberd. The captain's strength could have crushed Black Manta, but she wore no armor, and Black Manta's suit had been specially modified, its power system increasing fivefold. The moment they collided, the opponent was caught off guard. A deep-sea bandit by birth, Black Manta had never received formal combat training, but every move was honed in life-or-death combat. Seizing the moment of hesitation, Black Manta pressed his right hand hard, rising slightly, and stabbed the captain's heart with his left slingshot. Ulysses, the queen was stunned for a moment as she watched her guard slain. Then, a faint blue energy suddenly flashed from the golden trident in her hand. It emerged from the queen's body, infused into the golden trident, and then fed back to the queen from the golden trident. "Your sins are unforgivable," the queen roared, her delicate hands tightly gripping the golden trident as she thrust it fiercely into Black Manta's chest. With a thud, a shockwave erupted through the sea, sending Black Manta flying backwards. His engines, blasting to their limit, barely managed to stabilize. Where the golden trident struck, the superalloy melted, transforming into boiling hot metal. Black Manta immediately sealed his armor to prevent himself from drowning, while simultaneously activating his energy beams to their maximum. Two crimson eyes on his massive helmet blazed with intense red light. Two streams of blazing red light, like jets of water, shot out, creating a vacuum zone in the sea. The queen was slightly stunned. It was hard to imagine that any armor could withstand the power of the golden trident. But the current situation didn't allow for further thought. She raised the golden trident again. Leaning forward, she thrust it forward, facing the blazing red light. Boom! The golden trident and the blazing red light collided, magic and energy collided, and an extremely intense radiance erupted. However, after a moment of stalemate, the queen's golden trident gained the upper hand, piercing Black Manta's head with unstoppable force. At this moment, Orm roared, "Mother, I will help you." Although he claimed to be helping the queen, Orm aimed his own five-pronged spear at the queen's back and stabbed her fiercely. The heart-wrenching pain caused the queen's magic to stagnate, and the golden trident abruptly stopped in mid-air, less than 10 centimeters away from Black Manta's head. If the piercing blow shattered the Black Manta's helmet, it would be doomed in the underwater world. Why? The queen turned around with difficulty and looked at She couldn't imagine that her beloved son would do such a thing. Chapter 297, Ocean Lord. The golden trident slipped from the queen's hand. Orm dropped the five-pronged trident and reached for the golden trident in Atlantis' hand. This golden trident was a weapon wielded only by the king of Atlantis. It was said to enhance the wielder's power, making him invincible within the kingdom. "Why?" Orm, holding the golden trident, smiled. "Mother, you would rather let a bastard brother inherit the throne than me, a brother of noble blood. I will fulfill my father's will, rule the 7 seas, and then conquer the continent." Tears welled in Atlanta's eyes. She could feel her life force draining away. But her greatest regret was not being able to see Arthur Curry again. The child she hadn't seen since he was a baby, her son. "Congratulations, Your Highness Orm." "No, you should be called King Orm." Black Manta bowed slightly. After the queen's death, it was inevitable that Orm would become the king of Atlantis. Upon hearing this title, Orm shook his head. "I don't like it. I will not only be the king of Atlantis, but I will rule over all 7 seas. My name is Ocean Lord, Black Manta." "How long will it take for my bastard brother and the people on Earth to reach Atlantis?" "About 10 minutes. "Oh. Lord Ocean Lord, do you need me to lead the troops to stop them?" Black Manta asked respectfully. "No, let them come. They are the murderers of my mother, do you understand me?" Orm held the golden pendant in his hand, his eyes gleaming with a sharp light. Black Manta thought for a moment, then chuckled, "I understand." Mara, along with Arthur Curry, Lee, Superman, and Kara, dived into the deep sea. Because Flash and Shazam couldn't adapt to the oxygen-free environment, they returned to the Justice League headquarters. They planned to visit their friends in the deep sea once they had established a good working relationship. "It's hard to believe you can survive in the deep sea without Atlantean blood." Mira looked at Lee and the others, genuinely surprised. Arthur Curry had lived on the surface for over 30 years, after all, so he was relatively familiar with Superman and the others. "I heard the Avengers and Superman have something called a bioforce field, which allows them to adapt to any extreme environment. Not only can they survive in the deep sea, but even in space." "Cool." Others with some envy. "Most Atlanteans could only survive under the sea, and many with lower bloodlines would die if they ventured out of the water. But Lee and the others could survive in space just fine. without any geographical restrictions. Wow, a giant shark. Kara, who had been following Lee, suddenly noticed a number of people on the surface, riding sharks and holding weapons, seemingly on patrol. Those are Atlantean guards. Seeing them means we're almost to Atlantis. As Mira spoke, they descended rapidly, passing through a cloud-like thermal belt, and the view suddenly opened up. Thousands of meters below, a basin lay before them, and within it sat a magnificent golden city. Atlantis. From all directions, people, some riding sharks and some sailing ships, lined up in an orderly formation on the underwater bridge. Mira led them across. Li Yat and the others glanced at the other deep-sea humans around them. Some resembled those on the surface, with a nose, 2 eyes, a pair of ears, and a mouth. Others had ears shaped like fins and legs transformed into fish tails, resembling mermaids. Some even had crab-like carapaces on their backs, their hands covered in thick exoskeletons, resembling giant crabs. Everyone formed an orderly line on the underwater bridge, swimming towards the city of Atlantis. Why are we lining up? Can't we just swim over the city walls? That would be much faster. Arthur, impatient with the waiting, gazed toward the towering walls. Mara rolled her eyes at him. You can try. If you get within 500 meters of the city walls, the Guardian cannon will blast you to pieces. Is that cannon also powered by magic? Superman could sense an energy he disliked. If it were a physical weapon, he wouldn't have cared. Even if hundreds of anti-aircraft shells bombarded him for hours, Superman wouldn't even blink. But if it were a magical cannon, he'd have to be more cautious. Mara nodded. Yes, our technology is based on magic. We are about to enter the city of Atlantis. Follow me, and don't run around. Passing through the tall city gates, Mara led Arthur and the others toward the palace. Arthur was apprehensive along the way, for he was about to meet his mother. Although he had seen her in photos, his father always told him she was infinitely more beautiful than she looked. These are the Queen's guests. Please let us in. Arriving at the gates of the Atlantis Palace, Mara presented her as captain of the Queen's Guard. The guards recognized her and quickly let her in. The palace's architecture was incredibly luxurious, reminiscent of a shimmering crystal palace. Kara gazed around, overjoyed. Mira understood the little girl's expression, having witnessed the same scene on her first visit. Mira explained the palace to everyone and led them to the Queen's study chest, its blood hidden by a shroud of forbidden magic. Your Majesty, Mira froze at the sight. As everyone approached, the forbidden magic suddenly detonated, and the Queen's blood gushed out in all directions. Mother, Arthur Curry imagined countless encounters with his mother, but this one was beyond his wildest dreams. The next moment, Orm and his men, who had been lying in ambush, surged in from all sides. Earthlings killed the Queen. We must avenge her, Orm roared, his sinister gaze sweeping through the crowd before finally settling on the heavily tattooed Arthur Curry. No, when we arrived, the Queen had already. Mara was mid-sentence when her eyes suddenly brightened. She stared intently at Orm. It was you. You killed the Queen. Arthur Curry had been staring blankly at his mother from the beginning. When he heard Mara accuse Orm of murder, his eyes suddenly turned furious, and he lunged at Orm. I don't care who you are, I want you to pay for my mother's life. Arthur rushed forward, but was stopped by the incoming guards, each wielding an energy spear, aiming it at Arthur Curry, Li Yan, and the others. Li Yan heard a faint heartbeat in his ears. He squinted, and with his clairvoyant eyes, he saw the Queen's heart, still beating faintly. Atlanteans possessed inherently strong vitality, and Orm had placed a protective magical barrier upon the Queen to conceal the bloody aftermath of her death. It was this barrier that the Queen exploited, putting herself into a state of suspended animation. Leah glanced at Superman, meeting his inquiring gaze. She nodded, then spoke in a voice only Superman could hear, "The Queen is not dead. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels." Chapter 298, Rebellion. Stop, everyone, stop. Mara rushed between Arthur and the guards. I'm the Queen's Royal Guard. I can prove their innocence. This matter needs a thorough investigation. There's nothing to investigate. The truth is simple. You, too, betrayed the Queen. Guards, arrest them. Orm interrupted before Mara could finish. He waved his golden trident, and all the guards drew their energy spears. As word of the Queen's death spread, More and more soldiers gathered around the palace. Seeing Orm's smug expression, Arthur's fury reached its peak. "You bastard!" With a roar, Arthur Curry erupted with a shocking wave of energy, spreading in all directions. Boom! The surrounding guards, caught off guard, were sent flying by the powerful energy wave. With a sonic boom, Arthur shot out like a missile, cutting a torrent through the water. His body, Arthur's attack. The powerful impact sent both the men flying backwards. However, unlike Arthur's fury, Orm wore a relaxed expression. He had assessed his brother's combat prowess from the previous attack. The trident erupted with a terrifying burst of energy, passing through Arthur's pendant. Instantly, Arthur felt as if he had been electrocuted, and his hand went numb. Seizing the moment of his daze, Orm raised the golden trident with a powerful swirl, piercing his chest with a swift movement. Arthur responded hastily, having received no formal combat training in fighting underwater for the first time. Therefore, facing Orm's powerful attack, he could only barely withstand it. In the study, surrounded by guards Mira, Lydia, and the others. Mira, the queen, Lydia was about to tell Mira that the queen was not dead, but Mira interrupted her. "SHH, can you get the queen out? She can't stay here any longer." Mira had clearly realized the queen was still alive, but considering that Orm had dared to kill even his own mother to claim the throne, who knew how many people in the palace were still loyal to Orm? "Okay, please leave the queen to me." Lydia raised her hand, and 6 magical energy shields instantly appeared, tightly enveloping the queen. This would protect her from the ensuing battle and safeguard her life. The moment Lydia attacked, the guards' nerves snapped like a taut string, and fired energy spears or raised their weapons to lunge at Lydia and the others. Bang! 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 Superman and Lydia, one in front and one behind, blocked Mira's attacks. Kara moved, and with a bang, a cloud of water exploded. The little girl rushed forward, slamming into a guard. Boom! Like a cannonball exploding, the poor guard, unaware of what was happening, was struck by the little girl. His chest caved in. He flew backward, knocking the guards behind him like a bowling ball before finally coming to a stop. Everyone was stunned. This little girl was so ferocious. Mira's hand, ready to cast a spell, froze in midair, staring at Kara in disbelief. She hadn't expected this seemingly cute little girl to be so violent. But Kara ignored the gazes, turning back and delivering a powerful kick to the guard behind her. Having just witnessed Kara's terrifying power, the guards attacked simultaneously, stabbing her with 4 silver halberds and unleashing countless energy projectiles. Leah and Superman, naturally, wouldn't let Kara be bullied, and they also flashed and joined the fray. Bang! 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 A ferocious battle erupted. Though the Atlantean soldiers were far more powerful than humans, they were still vulnerable to Superman and Leah. The 2 men flashed, striking one after another with one blow, and in less than 10 seconds, the entire room of guards lay on the ground. None of them died, but they suffered varying degrees of fractures, comminuted fractures. Even with the Atlanteans' formidable physique, recovery would take 2 or 3 months. "Mira, I'll take the queen to our place for emergency treatment. Can you hold your ground?" Leah controlled the energy shield protecting the queen. He had to leave the Atlantean capital to perform special magic. Like many magical areas, this place was subject to special restrictions, preventing a direct portal from leaving. Only now did Mira recover from the scene. She had always believed that the Atlantean army was the most powerful in the world, but even such a formidable force couldn't hold out for more than 10 seconds against Leah and his men. "All right. You're Arthur's friends. I believe you can save the queen. Come with me." Mira shook her head, preparing to carry the dying queen to safety, but Superman looked upwards. "Arthur can't defeat Orm. I'll go help him." Orm's home turf was, so to speak, Orm's. Arthur Curry, raised on the surface, was naturally ill-suited to underwater combat. Furthermore, Orm was determined to kill his opponent. To achieve his ambition, he even murdered his own mother, not to mention his own half-brother. As for Aquaman Arthur Curry, he had never killed anyone, at least not at his own hands. Consequently, as the 2 sides battled, Orm grew increasingly frantic. His golden trident unleashed a powerful wave of energy, severing Arthur's weapon with one blow and cornering him. Wait, Mira swam swiftly towards the queen's bookshelf. Because of the recent battle, the queen's study was affected, and the magic books on the bookshelf were scattered across the floor. Mira found one from the pile and handed it to Superman. "This records the whereabouts of the trident of Poseidon. If Arthur finds the trident, the entire ocean will obey his command, and he will become the new king. Only when Arthur becomes the king of Atlantis can a bridge of peace be built between the deep sea and the land. I understand. Superman took the magic book and transformed into a torrent, swimming towards Arthur Curry. Let's go too. The top priority now was to rescue Her Majesty, both for the situation in Atlantis and for Aquaman Arthur himself. Mera led Lee and Kara out of the palace, but the palace was surrounded by a dense army. Chapter 299, Fight if you want. Outside the palace, the army's leader sported a golden beard, wore golden armor, held a golden pentacle, and rode a fierce sea dragon horse, seemingly waiting for Mera to appear. "Father, why are you here?" Mera was startled to recognize the leader on the sea dragon horse. This man was Mera's father, Nereus, the king of the kingdom of Zabel. It was not natural for a king of another kingdom to appear in Atlantis without reason, let alone with tens of thousands of soldiers at his side. Lee looked up, and the army overhead resembled a dark cloud, so dense it obscured the sky. The soldiers in the front row rode on excited sea dragon horses, weapons raised high, ready to charge at any moment. The energy guns in the back row were all activated, emitting a brilliant light. King Nereus of the kingdom of Zabel smiled lovingly at Mera. "Mera, the Earthlings have killed the Queen of Atlantis. Help me capture these two Earthlings." "That's not true, Father. The Queen is not dead. It was Orm who orchestrated this sowing discord between Atlantis and the Earthlings," Mera tried to explain, but her father snorted coldly. "Mera, you've been bewitched by the Earthlings. Someone, take Mera away." Although Mera and her father spoke in Atlantean, Lee understood and interrupted with a smile. "King Nereus, you've already allied with Orm. You also want to conquer the land." Hearing this, Mera looked at her father in disbelief. She couldn't believe her father was such a man. Nereus was stunned. He didn't understand why Lee spoke the Atlantean language, and he was equally curious about how Lee knew his intentions. "People of Earth, you're dumping garbage into the ocean and slaughtering marine life with impunity. Stop talking nonsense. Let's fight," Lee suddenly roared, extending his right hand. A flash of silver light shone, and a gleaming silver spear appeared in Lee's hand. "Kara, Mera, protect the queen. Leave these bastards to me." With a wave of his left hand, Lee threw the magical energy shield protecting the queen to Kara. Kara quickly reached out and took the box composed of 6 energy shields. "Can you do it alone?" Mera knew her duty was to protect the queen, a sense of worry and even a touch of emotion. King Nereus swung his golden halberd, pointing its 5 spikes at Lee. He coldly declared, "Earthling, you're courting death. All forces, attack. Kill, 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 kill." At King Nereus's command, the mighty army, a sea of thousands of warriors, erupted in earth-shaking roars. The sea dragon cavalry in the front row raised their silver halberds and led the charge. Hundreds of them rushed towards Lee simultaneously, stirring the sea into turbulent turmoil. But Lee remained like a 1,000-year-old rock, unmoved. When the cavalry reached him, he swung a silver spear in a flash of lightning. The ground exploded, and the moment he charged, he thrust his spear out like a dragon emerging from the sea. Boom! The seemingly formidable cavalry, in close combat with Lee, suddenly collapsed like a pile of loose sand. Holding his silver spear high, smashed a hole through the cavalry's formation. Countless soldiers were shattered by Lee's silver spear. Even the mighty sea dragon horses, barely touched by Lee's residual power, exploded into a bloody mist. With a single thrust, over half of the hundreds of charging cavalrymen were dead or wounded. What? How is this possible? King Nereus' heart pounded at the sight. These cavalrymen were the most elite soldiers the kingdom of Zabel had cultivated at great expense. Now, countless of them had been killed or wounded in a single round. His heart bleeds. "People of the earth, you've killed so many of us. You're provoking war," Nereus roared, even infusing his voice with a hint of magical energy to carry it even further. "No, Mera, turning to the crowd below, tried to explain. But Lee smiled and snorted coldly, "If you want war, then go ahead. There are many like me on Earth. If you can't even kill me, then don't naively run to the surface and die. It's very dangerous on the surface." Before he finished the last syllable, Lee's figure flashed again, and the seawater around him was compressed to its limit, with a deafening sonic boom. Bang! Shoot, shoot. Kill him, kill him. King Nereus' heart pounded, and his soldiers responded by firing their energy guns. Suddenly, a barrage of energy bullets rained down on Lee like a torrential rain. The magical energy contained in a single energy bullet wouldn't cause much damage to Leia, but tens, hundreds of thousands of energy bullets fired simultaneously would be a different story. Leia, using his gun as a hand, carved several magical energy shields in the void, blocking him and Karen and the others. A hail of energy bullets rained down on Leia's magical energy shield, scattering bursts of energy. The runes on the front of the shield shone brightly like pieces of red-hot iron. Leia, braving the incoming hail of bullets, thrust his spear at Nereus roared, and lunged at Leia's attack. Bang! The golden pendant and the silver spear collided, sending shockwaves erupting from the water, centered on the contact surface. Nereus's hands went numb, and he was sent flying backward by the terrifying force. The sea dragon horse beneath him let out a shrill roar, and with a desperate effort, it finally regained its footing in midair. "The king's weapon," Nereus exclaimed, then shook his head. Throughout the underwater world, the only weapon worthy of being called a king's weapon was the trident of Poseidon. Legend had it that possessing it allowed one to rule the seven seas and command the entire ocean. The weapons wielded by the kings of the four nations were a notch below those of a king. His silver bracelet was. The other party misunderstood, and Leia didn't bother to explain, swinging his silver spear and stabbing again. Chapter 300, Killing God? God of Punishment, Leia charged single-handedly into the encirclement of tens of thousands of Zabel's soldiers. Suddenly, divine thunder erupted, creating an electric field thousands of meters wide in the seawater. 500 meters weren't killed instantly, but the shock sent convulsions throughout their bodies, rendering them incapable of combat. Seeing this scene, Nereus nearly cried. He had investigated the humans on Earth, and it was clear that they were far more vulnerable than ordinary Atlanteans. Yet, this freak before him single-handedly challenged the army of an entire kingdom. And yet, this man claimed there were many others like him on Earth. How shameless. Watching Lee bathed in lightning, his every move unleashing terrifying thunderbolts, the strongest soldiers of the kingdom of Zabel looked as fragile as infants before him. Tens of thousands of troops had been decimated in less than 10 minutes. Nereus' voice trembled. "Who are you?" Lee froze in midair at the question, and the soldiers around him scattered as if fleeing the plague. "Can't you see? I'm a god, just like Poseidon, the god of the sea you worship." "A god." Lee sheathed his silver spear and stood 20 meters away from Nereus. The soldiers threw off their armor and retreated to their king's side. Now, they stared at Lee, who looked like a god, no, a deity incarnate, with terror in their eyes. How could human power possibly counter the will of a god? After hearing Leia's response, Nereus was silent for a moment, as if pondering something. After a long moment, he chuckled self-deprecatingly. "Gods? 200 years ago, when I was a child, I often heard my grandfather tell me about the age of mythology. How prosperous it was. But that age of mythology is over. There are no gods in this world." Before Nereus finished his words, he raised his golden pendant, pointed it at Leia and the others, and shouted, "Guardian cannons, fire!" As if triggering a signal, the massive magic cannons atop the walls of Atlantis instantly locked onto Leia, gathering a terrifying wave of energy. Instantly, it felt as if terrifying thunderclouds were brewing. The entire seabed was illuminated by the energy of hundreds of massive magic cannons, and the roar of the machines resonated like bursts of thunder hung in the balance. If she wasn't rushed to the Justice League's headquarters for treatment, she would be beyond redemption. The next second, hundreds of massive magic cannons simultaneously unleashed, slicing through the sea like dazzling golden rainbows, descending upon Leia and his companions with unparalleled force. However, Leia stood motionless, only the lightning swirling around him suddenly crackling violently. Kara and Mira felt the overwhelming surge of magical energy. Every hair on their bodies froze. They tried to escape, but all escape routes were blocked by hundreds of magic cannons, like prey trapped in a net. "Thunder Guard!" Leia frantically channeled divine power into his silver spear. The spear in his hand trembled violently, emitting a blinding light, as if threatened to explode under Leia's power. Boom! Boom! Magic cannons bombarded the curtain, the runes shimmering and trembling. The surrounding seawater instantly boiled and vaporized with terrifying magical energy, creating a vacuum. Nereus coldly gazed upon the vacuum created by the magic cannon, a hint of sarcasm on his face. "God? Even if you are truly a god, so what? I'm going to kill a god today." After Ragnarok, the nobles of Atlantis began to question divine authority, some even believing themselves to be gods. Otherwise, Nereus would not have agreed to the Almunion's proposal. Being king of the sea was no longer enough to satisfy his inflated ambitions. He wanted to conquer the continent and rule the world. God killing? You want to kill a god? I have to say, you're quite courageous, a discordant voice echoed, and the area boiling with magic cannon fire gradually cooled as the surrounding seawater cooled. By then, calm had returned, revealing a halo of light etched with silver-white runes. Liat and the others were still standing within it, unperturbed. What? Nereus' pupils shrank to pinpoints upon seeing this, but Liat suddenly vanished from his sight. By the time he could catch sight of Liat again, he had already raised his silver spear, blazing with sparks and lightning, and lunged at him. Guardian cannon, shoot. Shoot. Kill him. Kill. Watching Liat charging at him like a killer, Nereus was truly terrified. Thousands of armies couldn't kill him, nor could hundreds of giant, all-destructive magic cannons. Even an ancient god couldn't withstand the might of hundreds of magic cannons. Nereus retreated frantically. Having already fired a shot, all the magic cannons were in a cooling down period. Liat shouted, Kara. Cover me. Yes, Kara responded, narrowing her eyes as she fired at the magic cannons on the wall. Boom. A series of explosions erupted as heat vision detonated die. Without the threat of the magic cannons, Liat charged alone into the vast enemy horde, piercing Nereus from a distance. No. 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 Nereus's body trembled wildly, a premonition of death welling up within him. He flew backwards, stirring the sea, but no matter how he fled, he failed to gain distance from Liat. Instead, he drew closer. The shot seemed to shatter the void, unstoppable. Nereus had no escape. He held the golden pendant across his body, attempting to block Liat's blow. However, the moment their weapons made contact, the golden pendant that had allowed him to rule a kingdom melted like chocolate meeting red-hot iron, shattering in two. No. Don't kill my father, Mira screamed. No matter what her father did, Nereus was still her father. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.